driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I think for far too long in this country, millions of people felt as though they weren't represented at all by the establishment media.
GB News was needed because there literally was no other voice. Everyone was saying the same thing.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first. GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
But journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
Charlie Peters, he gave a voice to the victims of grooming gangs, and now, of course, it's led to a national inquiry.
GB News exists to make sure those concerns are put forward and people feel as though what they want to ask is put to those in power.
We don't take orders from anyone. We ask the questions our viewers and listeners want answering.
I know what's actually being discussed by my family and my friends. Us ordinary, hard-working British people have had enough. We've had enough.
They're fed up with the same old establishment nonsense. Everything that we do is opening up conversations that others are afraid to go at. Why are you illegally bringing people into Britain?
That is our job. Our job is to get to the truth.
If it's important to you watching or listening at home, then it's important to us as well.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Friday. Happy Friday, the 26th of September. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Dawn Neeson.
I'm announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament.
Yes, backlash is growing as the government announces that every adult in the country is to be handed mandatory digital ID cards.
The PM hopes these ideals will prevent people working illegally. Is this unacceptable state control, and will it even work, though? Reform UK leader Nigel Farage slams the move.
I do not see a single benefit to the government having digital ID other than them controlling what we do.
Well, of course, the digital ID card system will only work if those premises that people are illegally employed in are raided by immigration enforcement, and there's only so many of them to go round.
Elsewhere today, the former Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ming Campbell has died at the age of 84.
And Nigel Farage is on course to be Prime Minister, leaving the Tories on the brink of extinction. That's according to a brand new bombshell megapoll from YouGov.
Terror charges against kneecap rapper Liam O'Hanna have been thrown out as the judge says proceedings against the defendant were instituted unlawfully and are null. We'll give you all the political reaction.
And unions are urging UK theatres to limit alcohol sales as staff are facing unacceptable abuse, with rowdy audience members disrupting performances with heckling, violence and even examples of, I beg your pardon, copulation in the stalls.
Goodness me. And the government is announcing billions of pounds of your money to revive Britain's high streets with new parks and public spaces. But will it be enough? And will this money be well spent? Well, there's serious news, and then there's what you said about population in the stalls.
I just can't believe I read that. Happy Friday. It is a Friday, by the way, so we are allowed to use phrases like copulation in the stalls.
I think that's the final time we should say the phrase copulation in the stalls.
I didn't write that at all, by the way, but it is more... The serious side of that story is more interfering in how we live our lives.
Yeah.
As if having a digital ID... I'm not sure I'd help in that situation, though.
No, and here's the thing. I mean... digital ID as a means to stop illegal working, well, it only works if you check the digital ID.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how will they know who's an illegal worker and who's not? And aren't there going to be all sorts of restrictions in terms of profiling people? You can't just stop people if they're not white.
I have so many questions about how this is going to work. The one thing I do know for sure that it is not going to stop any boats at all.
And yet it might stop you and I in the street with a police officer coming up to you saying, excuse me, show me your digital ID.
Show me your papers. Exactly. And your papers are quite interesting.
Well, we're going to be getting to all of that and much more after your very latest news headlines.
Very good afternoon. It's just gone 12 o'clock. These are the top stories this afternoon. The Prime Minister has unveiled plans for free digital ID in a bid to crack down on illegal working and make it easier for people to access public services. The government says that the free IDs will be held on people's phones and will simplify access to government services and replace the need for paper records. Reform UK say it's a cynical ploy to fool voters that something is being done about illegal immigration, with the Tories branding the move a desperate gimmick to stop the small boats. Shadow Work and Pension Secretary Helen Whately spoke to GB News earlier today.
Don't want to have a society where people can be stopped in the street and asked to show their ID. Completely opposed to that. And the fact is, this was an announcement rushed out at the last minute, and it's a last-minute thing from Keir Starmer to try and distract from all the problems. It's just a smokescreen for the failures of him and his government.
Announcing that news at the Global Progress Action Summit in London this morning, the Prime Minister also used his speech to insist that the centre-left parties are, quote, not dying out. He used the keynote address to say that it was time to directly confront challenges in society. In his speech, he hit out at Tommy Robinson and, quote, cynical political opponents. He added that people are very disappointed with the pace of change and that Labour must reclaim patriotism from Reform UK. Now, former leader of the Liberal Democrats, Lord Ming Campbell, has died at the age of 84. Walter Menzies Campbell, often known as Ming, had a parliamentary career spanning 5 decades, and he served as leader of the party between 2006 and 2007. His grandson praised him in a statement, saying, "Like so many of us, I greatly benefited from Ming's advice and guidance over the years." He also praised him as a warm and caring friend and colleague. Nigel Farage is on course to be the next Prime Minister, according to a new YouGov poll. According to the MRP polling prediction, if there was an election held tomorrow, there would be a hung parliament, with Reform UK winning 311 of the 650 seats, just 15 short of the winning line of 226. In practice, it would be impossible for anyone other than the party leader to secure the largest number of MP backers and ultimately become Prime Minister. Meanwhile, a defiant Sir Keir Starmer has vowed to lead from the front into the next general election, despite speculation over his future. The Prime Minister dismissed calls for wholesale change in national politics from Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham, insisting that Labour can and will deliver for the country. Sir Keir also branded the Conservatives, quote, basically dead, and urged voters to reject what he calls the politics of grievance from Nigel Farage's Reform UK. Andy Burnham, meanwhile, says that he remains completely committed to Manchester, although he's not ruled out a future leadership bid. Elsewhere, the terrorism case against Kneecap rapper Liam O'Hanna has been thrown out by the Chief Magistrate sitting at Woolwich Crown Court following a technical error in the way the charge was brought against him. Mr O'Hanna, who performs under the stage name Mo Chara, is accused of displaying a flag in support of proscribed terror organisation Hezbollah at a gig at the O2 Forum in Kentish Town in November last year. He denies the charge and has described it as political. A multi-billion-pound boost is coming to Britain's high streets, parks and public spaces. The government's announced up to £5 billion for its new Pride in Place programme, backing 339 neighbourhoods to lead local renewal. That includes £2 million a year for a decade in 169 areas, totalling at £3.5 billion, alongside £1.5 billion already pledged to 75 other communities. Now, nearly 2 in 3 head teachers say that Ofsted's new inspection regime will damage their well-being even more than the old system. A survey of more than 1,000 schools and colleges leaders found that the vast majority are unhappy with the reforms, which replace single grades with report cards. Union leader Pepe de Lacio called the findings deeply worrying, warning that the changes could deter people from becoming teachers and school leaders. And a rare Asian elephant calf has been born at Blackpool Zoo after a 2-year pregnancy. The baby elephant, Zaya, arrived on the evening of the 2nd of September when her mother, Tara, delivered her first offspring. The staff in Blackpool Zoo had spent years preparing for this moment, implementing careful planning to manage potential complications during the lengthy pregnancy and birth. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now, but before I hand you back to Tom and Dawn, let's quickly check in on the markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's how the markets are shaping out this afternoon. The pound will buy you $1.335 and €1.143. The price of gold is £2,809.79 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 9,252 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 9 minutes past midday. And let's kick off our top story. The government has announced the introduction of mandatory digital ID cards for all Britons.
I'm announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that. Because decent, pragmatic, fair-minded people, they want us to tackle the issues that they see around them.
Sir Keir Starmer has said the Brit card will help to curb illegal immigration by preventing migrants from slipping into the shadow economy.
But the plans have faced backlash as over 838,000 people have signed a petition demanding Number 10 reverse the policy.
The Tories have branded the move a desperate gimmick. Earlier, GB News spoke to Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary Helen Watley.
Don't want to have a society where people can be stopped in the street and asked to show their ID. Completely opposed to that. And the fact is, this was an announcement rushed out at the last minute, and it's a last-minute thing from Keir Starmer to try and distract from all the problems. It's just a smokescreen for the failures of him and his government.
Well, for their part, the Liberal Democrats say they can't support the move. They tweeted earlier, people shouldn't be criminalised just because they don't want to hand over their private data.
Meanwhile, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage also raised concerns over state interference.
I do not see a single benefit to the government having digital ID other than them controlling what we do, what we spend and where we go. And we, in Reform, are wholly opposed to it in every single way.
But of course, this isn't the first time that digital ID, or indeed mandatory ID cards, have raised their head as an issue in British politics. It was a significant issue at the end of the 2000s, just ahead of the 2010 general election. Here's what then opposition party leader David Cameron had to say in 2009.
The only way I could ever imagine it really helping with crime is if we did something which would be so un-British that I think it would be quite appalling. Can you imagine the consequence of that? You know, you take the dog for a walk at night, and the policeman comes up, where are your papers? Who wants to live in a country like that?
Well, the German accent was perhaps a bit more than was necessary there. That was quite a stir at the time.
Yours, to be honest with you. Yeah,
there are your papers.
It's very hello, isn't it? I'm not even going to attempt it. There are so many questions, and we know that so many of you want to get involved in this conversation as well. And bear in mind, you can at gbnews.com/your say. So many questions. So let's talk straight away to our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark.
Well, listen, the government and the Prime Minister believes that the public mood has changed since that debate back when Tony Blair wanted to introduce ID cards in the 2000s. And he may be right, there is a great deal of concern across the country at the levels of migration which have led to tensions in communities right across the country. And we're hearing today, just to hammer this point home, the Office for National Statistics figures showing the second highest annual increase in our population in history, 755,000 in the year to June last year, 750,000, taking us over 69 million as a population here. 1.2 million people came into the country, 500,000 left. But this is legal migration. This is something the government has the ability to put very strict controls on and to bring the numbers down, to bring the population growth down to a more manageable level and to ease these tensions in communities around the country. The issue of illegal migration, of course that's a problem here. But is the introduction of a digital ID card going to stop that problem? I would suggest absolutely not.
Mark, what is the argument that it would? Why does the government believe, or at least sort of thrash around at this policy option, why do they think it could stop illegal migration?
Because in the world of the government, it's simple, a simple issue of if you've no right to work here, you clearly will be asked to show your card and therefore you won't gain employment. That's not how the grey economy works. The illegal economy works both by illegal immigrants here wanting to work in that economy, but many, many, many employers who are unscrupulous, who don't give two hoots about the systems in play and are more than happy to pay people cash in hand. There's 1.5 million at least people working in the illegal economy here.
You and I have covered enough of these stories, Mark. The criminal gangs, they don't give a monkeys about this sort of thing. It's just the government not living in the real world here.
And actually, you know, what is the upshot of this? The upshot of this is that everyone in this country will be required to register for digital ID. So it becomes, you know, the onus is on us, legitimately living in this country, to prove that we are legitimately here and have a legitimate right to work.
These kind of regulations always hurt the people who are law-abiding the most.
Yeah.
Let's go straight to our political editor now, Christopher Hope, though, who can join us where this announcement took place. Chris.
Hi, Tom. Yeah, well, that was quite a moment there. In the audience watching Sir Keir Starmer make that speech were all of his top team, people like Jonathan Powell, the National Security Advisor, other key figures from his own private office. I think this was a real moment in his time as Prime Minister. He said there, with his party, this government is now in an open fight with Reform UK for voters. The Tory party is withering on the vine. And with me now is John McTernan, who is Tony Blair's political secretary. John McTernan, that was a new Keir Starmer, I think, one who wants to fight reform. The Tories are nowhere.
Yeah, look, I think Keir really named it. The Tories are gone. The real opposition in the country is reform, and you've got to take on reform in your own way. So you can't keep fighting with reform on their turf. So digital ID cards, I think, is an idea whose time has come. It's an idea that always tests well with the public, and it's one that Nigel Farage is going to go, no, don't do that. So it's a good wedge to be, we're for security, we're for making sure that people who are working here are working legally, and Nigel Farage is going on about, witchering on about civil liberties and Big Brother, and I think that's a great place for Labour to be.
So there are now two ways, aren't there, to tackle illegal migration at the election. ECHR withdrawal, probably recommended by the Tories and certainly by Reform UK, and Labour, which is ID cards. Those are the two ways to tackle illegal migration.
Those are two ways, but there's also a context, which is there was a speaker today who talked about Joe Biden's successful strategy towards the end, which was safe routes for people to apply from other countries, and then absolutely sending back to the countries they came from everybody who then didn't come on a safe route. And that, I think, is the vision behind the France deal, the vision behind the Germany deal. And so you could see an emerging European Union deal, which is no one comes across the channel and gets in, come across the channel, you get sent back. But if you come here, you get an ID, and if you get to stay, and I think that sense of we know the boundaries are being securely patrolled.
You use the word squeamish. The left has been too squeamish to talk about things that bother people like migration. That's quite a big word, isn't it, for the left to admit that?
Look, it's a big word, and he was also admitting, in a sense, that the Labour Party haven't been in the debate for 14 years. During the Tory government, the Labour Party were on the edges, not sure under its leadership what it should be saying, what it should be doing. And I think some things people are squeamish about is state control. The ID cards can be opposed because it's a form of big state control, but it's state control to make us safe. And I think one of the key themes of Keir today was he's been providing security abroad through the increased NATO.
Would he worry about the 700,000 people signing a petition against digital ID and all those on the small state side, the civil liberties groups, saying this is outrageous?
The thing to do in politics is pick a fight. And if you pick a fight, you will split people, and we're not looking for votes from those people by and large. We're looking for votes from people who make, it's a common sense approach. It will make sense. It will give us more security.
So he won't care because they won't vote Labour?
Well, he will like there being a fight because people keep talking about it. If people don't oppose it, no one knows there's any news going on. But people keep talking about it. Are you for the digital ID card? Oh, I've not heard about that. And I think it's got the attraction, the deep attraction, and then the access to public services and the efficiency of public services that you can build on top of it are important too.
But those concerns are big state controlling our data, knowing where we are?
I think that's a very minority view in the country to be the Big Brother watch people. I was on the radio with one of them this morning. They sound paranoid. If you're a good citizen, a normal citizen, what have you got to fear?
Thank you. There we have it. That's John McTernan defending this move on ID cards, and the gloves are really off, it seems, between Sir Keir Starmer and Nigel Farage.
Really interesting stuff there, Chris. Thanks indeed for joining us and bringing us that reaction live from the room where it happened. I think this is clearly what the government is trying to do. I think if you were to take a snap poll, and I think a lot of people were surprised at how authoritarian the British public can be on some issues. During COVID, for example, whenever there was a lockdown, they always polled very, very highly. I think the government wants to create a wedge issue here between reform, with reform on the side of the sort of libertarians, so that Labour can appear as if it's on the side of the strong state and appear sort of powerful.
Very curious there. If you are concerned about this, you've just been described as paranoid. Let me know what you think about that one. gbnews.com/your say. Now, at GB News, we do, indeed, as I've just said, love to hear what you think on every story. And every day we'll be running our poll of the day. Today, we are indeed asking, are digital IDs an attack on our freedoms? We'll be bringing you the live result throughout the day, so make sure you do stay tuned. It's an important debate, this one. The final result will be announced later in Martin Daubney's show.
Now, of course, for all of our latest polls, news and indeed how to vote, you can go to gbnews.com/poll. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. There's plenty more to come.
Yes, terror charges against kneecap rapper Liam O'Hanna have been thrown out as the judge says proceedings against the defendant were instituted unlawfully and are null. We'll give you the full detail on that one.
But after the break, Nigel Farage is on course to be Prime Minister, leaving the Tories on the brink of extinction. That's according to a new bombshell mega poll by the polling company YouGov. All of that and more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Is he the last great film star? Is that a silly thing to say?
No, it is. There is one more.
Of course.
Clint. I mean, absolute genius as a director and an actor.
Well, Clint is like him, you know, great actor,
Correct, yeah.
incredibly good looking.
He was so good looking for so long.
Yeah.
And you can see how it was a huge advantage initially and maybe a bit of a disadvantage as he got older.
Do you think so?
Yeah, because he was good looking. No, he's an actor as well. He was a director as well. And that's why he changed and founded the Sundance Film Festival and whatever to show that he could bring forward projects.
And of course named after one of his most famous characters.
Yeah.
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Yeah.
For you, when you think of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, what do you think of?
Oh, I think the jumping off the
That's it.
The cliff into the water. I
they
can't
both
swim.
stand there and it's like, well, and then he goes, I can't swim.
Yeah.
And he said, well, he starts laughing. He goes, well, the fall's probably going to kill you anyway.
Yeah.
So then they just hold hands and then they run out.
But he was great into those films. When you look at those films in the 70s, like All the President's Men, I mean, just...
What a great film that is. Him and Dustin Hoffman.
That inspired
Woodward
me.
and Bernstein.
That inspired me to
really?
To become a journalist, yeah. And I actually talked to the kids in here about how in that film they pick up and they say and they typewriters and they use the phone. And it's not the way it is today. The way you send an email or a text or whatever it is, you get an answer from someone. You speak to them on the phone and they confirm something and you've got that detail. Whereas today they all wait for emails to be responded to and whatever.
See, the thing is, what you've got to do, though, surely, is loosen the tie, shirt undone, feet up on the desk with about 6 phones. Get me Deep Throat on the phone right now.
The People's Channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon, Britain. It is 12:25, very, very nearly, and a bombshell even, Dawn, teeth in, a bombshell new poll by YouGov has revealed that Nigel Farage would be our next Prime Minister if an election was held tomorrow.
Yes, this is a multi-level regression and post-stratification analysis by YouGov, otherwise known as a mega poll. It's 13,000 respondents that found that Reform would win 311 seats. Now, that would be a hung parliament, but with the Tories being reduced to a rump of 45 seats, it's easy to see how Nigel Farage would become Prime Minister.
Well, 1 in 3 people would pretty much vote for him, was the other latest poll we had. So does this new poll suggest that Reform are now favourites for the next election?
Well, delighted to be joined now by the Director of Politics at Ipsos, Kieran Pedley. Kieran, thanks for joining us. Just first of all, explain why this poll is sort of much more special than your common or garden poll of a couple of thousand people.
Well, so MRP polls have been pretty common during the last general election, and the premise behind them is essentially you do a poll of a larger sample of the public so you can really drill down to different geographical areas, essentially a model how seats would go. And as we know, that whilst vote share is important when it comes to general elections, what really matters in our first past the post electoral system is how many seats individual parties win. And so these polls are things that people pay very close attention to for that reason. But at the same time, they are polls, they are a moment in time. We know that the general election is likely to be several years away, and different numbers come from different pollsters as well. So, it is one poll, but it is an interesting one.
I mean, Kieran, most polls have been shifting this way for a while, haven't they, saying that Reform... I can't remember the last poll that said anything different.
Yeah, so Ipsos, our most recent political poll, voting intention poll in the summer, had Reform double digits ahead of Labour. I think one of the obvious trends that we've seen, both in opinion polling, but also at the local elections and by-elections too, is Reform gaining in support. And so in some respects, some of these findings will not be a surprise. And that does put some pressure on Keir Starmer and the Labour Party going into next week's party conference.
I suppose one of the issues that becomes incredibly difficult to poll, no matter how fancy a methodology is what tactical voting will actually do. And sometimes more divisive political figures can be a lightning rod for their opposition. So people who might be wanting to vote for the Lib Dems or the Greens might actually hold their noses and vote Labour, or vice versa in a Lib Dem facing seat, a Green, all the rest of it. How can pollsters actually account for this sort of stuff? And might the likelihood of tactical voting against Nigel Farage as an individual, might that be a bigger challenge for the Reform Party than for parties that sit closer to the centre?
Yes, I think you're right, Tom. I think when you look at the last general election, part of the reason for the Conservatives' wipeout that they experienced was just that in certain areas of the country, people did look for whichever the best option was to get rid of the Tories, if I could use that phrase. And so one of the challenges that Reform UK might have at the next general election is if Labour are able to successfully frame that contest as a two-horse race between Labour and Reform, then they might be able to encourage, as you say, people to vote Labour where they might otherwise not want to stop Reform, or to support other parties to keep Reform out in areas where the Liberal Democrats are doing well, and so forth. But I think part of the challenge for Labour in doing that is to give those more progressive-minded voters, if you like, a reason to care, a reason to want to do that, and to want a Labour government over a Reform one, and to act accordingly. So these are all big challenges. Briefly, to touch on your question about how pollsters account for this is part of the reason why you do try to do large sample polls every now and then, so you can really get to that geographical detail that I mentioned earlier.
Interesting.
Okay, thank you very much, Kieran. That's Director of Politics at Ipsos, Kieran Pedley there. And let us know what you think, as always. I mean, that does pretty sort of damning for the other parties, doesn't it? I mean, Nigel Farage is going to be your next Prime Minister.
Well, quite possibly. But speaking of other parties, Lord Ming Campbell, the former leader of the Liberal Democrats, has died today at the age of 84. That was announced by his party, of course.
Yeah. He first stood as a candidate for the Liberal Democrat seat in 1976, but didn't win his constituency for 11 years.
Well, his first career was as a sprinter. He held the UK 100-metre record from 1967 to 1974 and ran in the 64 Tokyo Olympics, being dubbed the Flying Scotsman.
He was brilliant, actually. And a Scottish Liberal Democrat leader, Alex Cole-Hamilton, MSP, said Sir Menzies was one of the most respected politicians of his generation.
Well, let's speak to former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker now. Norman, Ming Campbell, a man who loomed large over politics.
He was a very decent person, that's the first thing to say, and that sort of decency is lacking to a larger degree these days in politics, which is a shame. He built his reputation on sound arguments and on principle. And when he made a comment, you knew that he believed it. I mean, he was very strong, for example, in opposing what Tony Blair was doing on the Iraq War. He was also very strong, I might say very topically now, on opposing, as we all were, Labour's authoritarian ID cards, which we managed to ditch when the coalition was formed between the Conservatives and Lib Dems in 2010. He was an honest man. He got a lot of bad press, unfairly, because when he became leader, he was about 64 years old, I think. I can't quite remember how old he was. And the press ran a campaign about how old he was and how he was unsuitable to be there, as if someone of that age is incapable of being a party leader. Well, just look across the water, the 80-year-olds, Biden and Trump, and 16 years on from Ming Campbell. So he had to deal with that, which is unfortunate. But he had a good time as Lib Dem leader, relatively short period in office because he replaced Charles Kennedy and was there until Nick Clegg came along. But I think everybody thinks he was a decent man, and that's how I remember him, certainly.
Norman, he helped to restructure the tax system, actually lifting genuinely poor people out of poverty. What do you think he'd make of some of the current policies this government have about what they're doing to some of the poorest, including pensioners?
I think he'd be pretty disgusted, to be honest with you, with some of the policies, which appear to be hitting people at the bottom end rather than, if you have to have increases in taxes, and we try to avoid those, of course, but you have to have them, then you pick on organisations like banks or people at the top end of society who are very, very rich and don't pay their share of tax at the moment because you've got an offshore. You try to deal with those people rather than hitting people who are very poorly off and people who don't know where their pound's coming from for their heating or for their food. And so I think he'd be pretty disgusted with that. He would certainly be against ID cards, which are a police state thing, which I don't trust big governments. I'm an old-fashioned liberal. You don't give the state too much power against the individual, and that was his view as well.
Really, really significant stuff there. I wonder, just looking back at where politics was in the mid-2000s, things seem to have shifted markedly. I mean, new parties on the scene. The Lib Dems, more seats than today than they had then, and then was then known as a high watermark, really.
Yeah.
But does the Liberal Party seem as relevant today as it did then? It's hard to imagine a sort of three-way debate in the way that we saw in 2010.
Well, I think in 2010 in particular, there was a narrow majority for the Labour government under Gordon Brown, and it was clear that they're going to lose power. So I think the Lib Dems were played in then by the fear of the Labour government that finished with Gordon Brown. I think we're in an entirely different situation, Tom, as you say now, because we've got an unwillingness from the public at large to vote for Labour or Tory. Labour and Tory always try and push people into those boxes. And people don't want to be pushed into boxes anymore. They want to vote according to the MP standing in their particular seat, according to tactical voting you mentioned a moment ago, according to their commitment to the environment or whatever it happens to be, or against immigration or something. So they're being pulled apart. In the last election, the combined vote for Labour and Tory was the lowest it had been for over 100 years, I think. So people are trying to make the first past the post system work for them in a way that is creative, but actually, it's tension, and it's not always possible to get the right result you want. But we are relevant. We got up to 72 seats, as you said, it's the largest number of Lib Dem seats for over 100 years. The latest poll I saw, which you had on a moment ago, had the Lib Dems up further at 78, and the Tories at 45. So, we are still, if you like, the third party, but we've overtaken the Tories. And a poll last week, in fact, another poll, put us ahead of the Tories as well, on 16% on the vote. So, we've learned to make the first past the post system work for us, and we've made sure that we can get these seats where we are strong, and that will continue. Just one word on polls, Tom, if I may say so. I mean, bitten. I've been hard bitten by this over the years, as many Liberals have. We've seen polls where we were really high in the polls, and we've ended up with the general election with not very many seats.
Yes.
And Reform have got 4 MPs. To go from 4 to 3 and 11 in one go is stretching it a bit, I think.
Right. No party's done that before in the history of the country, but unprecedented times. We'll see. Norman Baker, thanks indeed for joining us.
Norman. OK, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. There's loads more coming up on today's show.
Yes, the former Prime Minister, Sir Tony Blair, makes an unexpected offer to take over the running of Gaza. Is Sheikh Blair going to be coming to the rescue?
Well, it went terribly well last time he got involved in the Middle East, didn't it? Not only that, but a petition demanding that the UK government immediately commits to not introducing a digital ID card is gaining a lot of traction. All of that and much more to come, and after your latest news headlines.
Very good afternoon. These are your top stories at 12:30. Breaking today, the former leader of the Liberal Democrats, Lord Ming Campbell, has died at the age of 84. Walter Menzies Campbell, often known as Ming, had a parliamentary career spanning 5 decades and served as leader of the party between 2006 and 2007. Elsewhere, the Prime Minister has unveiled plans for a free digital ID in a bid to crack down on illegal working and make it easier for people to access public services. Speaking at a summit this morning, he revealed the news, saying it's an enormous opportunity, but it faces growing backlash as Reform UK call it a cynical ploy to fool voters, and the Tories brand it as a desperate gimmick to stop the votes. And the Electoral Commission has found no evidence of any other potential offences and will not reopen the investigation into undeclared donations to Labour Together when it was led by Sir Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney. That is what the Watchdog has reported this afternoon. Nigel Farage is on course to be the next Prime Minister, according to a new YouGov poll. This also comes as Reform UK hits 250,000 members, making it the second largest political party in the UK. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
OK, now there's loads more coming up on today's show. Absolutely packed, don't want to move muscle. The Electoral Commission has found no evidence of any other potential offences and will not reopen the investigation into undeclared donations to Labour Together when it was led by Sir Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney.
Well, all that and much more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, very good day to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After a largely sunny day for many of us yesterday, today is going to be a fair bit cloudier for many because the high pressure that's dominated our weather through much of this week has shifted away a little bit further towards the east, allowing for a bit more of an easterly flow across England in particular, and so we're dragging in some cloud from the east. As a result, through this afternoon, central and eastern parts of England are going to be pretty cloudy, and some of that cloud filtering into parts of Wales, southwest England, even across eastern parts of Scotland, and there may be 1 or 2 showers around as well. Where the cloud's thick, particularly in the southeast, a bit of a fresh feel to things, but further north and west with some sunshine, feeling a fair bit warmer. Then, as we go through this evening, actually, there's a chance of some cloud breaking up across parts of East Anglia and Kent, for example, so some late sunshine here perhaps, but also a few showers to watch out for. Staying cloudier there across much of central England, large chunks of Wales and southern England as well. Meanwhile, across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland and some areas of northern England, there will be a few breaks in the clouds, some late sunshine for quite a few places here. Staying mostly dry as we go overnight, not totally dry, that's because there is a band of rain coming in from the west. That's going to feed in across parts of Northern Ireland, later into western Scotland as well. Elsewhere, yes, a largely dry picture, and some of the cloud will be breaking up, but there will be a little bit more cloud around than some recent nights. As a result, temperatures dropping a little bit where we get the clear skies, but perhaps not as low as recent nights for many, though across parts of the east, southeast of England, actually it could be, again, quite chilly and perhaps a bit more mist and fog than we've seen through some recent mornings here. As we go through tomorrow then, this band of rain across western parts is going to be quite heavy, could cause some impacts across parts of Northern Ireland, western, southwestern Scotland, 50, maybe 70 millimetres of rain building up in just 5 to 6 hours perhaps in some places, but across central and eastern parts, a drier story.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Motorists should be aware of congestion occurring on the M58 eastbound between Junction 5 and the M6. Expect delays of approximately 10 minutes. Additionally, on the M18 southbound near Rotherham, a broken down vehicle between Junction 2 and Junction 1 has resulted in one-lane closure. Traffic conditions are estimated to return to normal shortly after noon today. And on the trains, London Overground services face issues with no trains currently operating to or from Stratford in London. Additionally, northern services are affected, with replacement buses running between Corkicle and Whitehaven. Stay up to date at gbnews.com for more travel news.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 20 to 1, and the Electoral Commission has said that they will not reopen their investigation into Morgan McSweeney over the Labour Together donations scandal.
They added there was no evidence of any other potential offences.
Well, let's speak to our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, because, Catherine, they had already investigated and found an offence.
Yes, I think this will be a relief to Number 10, who, let's face it, have got all sorts of problems going on at the moment and going to conference in Liverpool. But fundamentally, Labour Together is a think tank that was founded by Morgan McSweeney, who is now the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff. And it turned out, and this was known back in 2021, that they had £739,000 of donations, which they had not registered at the time that they should. Legally, you have to register them within a certain time frame, and they had not done so. So it was investigated back in 2021. The Electoral Commission found multiple breaches, I think over 20 breaches, and fined Labour Together £14,000. End of story, you might have thought. This story has come back in the last week or so because the Conservatives have basically been digging up what they have said is fresh dirt, particularly some emails from a senior Labour lawyer who said to McSweeney that it's probably best to say that this is an administrative error. Now, that was the argument from Labour Together, was fundamentally there's nothing to see here. It was entirely unintentional. It's just a human error, administrative error. So those emails, the Conservatives thought, were sufficient to push for a new investigation. But the Electoral Commission has looked at them and said that they say there is no evidence of any other potential offences. So they're not going to go over it again. But I think it's worth saying Labour Together was instrumental in getting the Labour Party back from Jeremy Corbyn and the far left. They went about it in a very sort of under-the-radar manner, not to attract attention.
Lots
Obviously,
of
didn't
polling
want
of the membership, finding what their values were, what messages would work.
Exactly. But they were very careful to do it without attracting attention. Now, the Conservatives' allegation is that they deliberately didn't declare these donations exactly because they didn't want to draw attention. But anyway, the Electoral Commission are not investigating, but I still think, you know, it is not a good look. The Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, questions being asked again about integrity at the highest levels of government, given what's just happened with Peter Mandelson and Angela Rayner.
Yeah, not for the first time. I just want to run one message out from Mick. Says, Starmer's carpets must be touching the light fitting. There's so much swept underneath them.
Goodness me.
Let those comments keep coming in.
Catherine Forster, thanks very much indeed.
Catherine.
Well, the Electoral Commission might have dropped their investigation, but still here to come on this programme.
Yes, unions are urging UK theatres to limit alcohol sales as staff are facing unacceptable abuse with rowdy audience member, I told you to stop that, Tom, disrupting performances with heckling, violence and, I'm sorry, language alert, even copulation in the stall.
Outrageous. Well, if you're in search of something a bit more above board in the sun, here's the weather in Europe.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're wondering where's good for the weather or heading south during the next few days, be aware there's a next hurricane approaching Portugal whilst it's staying breezy through Greece, particularly the Greek islands. Nothing too unusual about that. But for Italy, increasingly unsettled, some heavy rain and thunderstorms, particularly towards the south, and for Sicily. Across Iberia, settled on Saturday, but here's that ex-hurricane likely to bring some strong winds and heavy rain into Portugal in particular later in the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
only on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weekdays tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel. Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Oh, yeah, welcome back. Hello, there you are. Yeah, good afternoon, Britain. It is, as Tom would say, it's, 48 minutes past 12.
Yeah,
to be
12
precise.
minutes to 1.
Yes, indeed. You do it that way, I'll do it the other way. It makes it more fun. In any case, from screaming to heckling and sometimes even, I'm going to say grown-up cuddles. I'm going to say grown-up cuddles in the stores.
It's early afternoon.
I know. Rowdy theatre goers are becoming unbearable for creative workers.
So get this, the unions are calling for a limit to alcohol sales in theatres to bring an end to what they're calling unacceptable abuse.
It begs the question, should alcohol indeed be banned in theatres?
Delighted to say, to debate this, we have etiquette expert Liz Brewer and lifestyle commentator Steve Miller. OK, over to you first, Liz. What do you make of this?
I think it's disgraceful if they disturb the actors. You know, the whole thing about going to the theatre is to watch the performance. And to have people sort of heckling or talking from the result of drink is very disturbing. You know, if you're trying to perform, you're doing your best for the audience. There is a time and a place. There's a bar. I'm not saying ban drinking. What I'm saying is drinking during the performance, if it leads to excess, is not appropriate. You've got to respect those actors. It's hard enough for them anyway in today's world. And you need to focus and watch their performance. So I have no time for people if they start heckling or if they start making abusive comments, or indeed if they're in the back row of the stalls, or even if they're not in the back row of the stalls and misbehave. It's inappropriate.
Steve, I'm not going to be so rude as to ask you what you get up to in the back row of the stalls, but is this punishing the majority for the behaviour of the minority?
Yeah, in the back row of the stalls, I often have a good snog with my fella and drink and sip my glass of Sauvignon Blanc. The debate is about banning alcohol if you go to the theatre. Listen, I went to a theatre last Sunday in Bristol. It was an Erasure concert, if you remember them. It was brilliant. I had 3 glasses of Sauvignon Blanc. It was lovely. People were drinking. People were enjoying themselves. No one was rowdy. Don't get me wrong, if I took off my pants and waved my Union Jack knickers in the air, then maybe I should be wheeled off. Quite rightly. In fact, Keir Starmer would probably wheel me off with Union Jack pants, wouldn't he? But you know what? I think it's probably some arty-farty type that's come up with this, you know, party pooper, let's ban everything again. I have to say, whenever I've been to the theatre, usually to a concert, because I'm not into all that Shakespeare stuff, I've never seen any problems at all. And also, if someone is drunk and disorderly, you shouldn't be serving them anyway. So that's the reality of it. And my final point, talking about digital ID, by the way, today, aren't we, is that what I fear might happen is that with digital ID, it goes a step further and starts controlling what we purchase anyway. So if we purchase more units than are recommended by the government per week, guess what? We won't be able to buy it anyway, because that's the authoritarian kind of culture we're going to embrace.
I mean, Liz, there is a point about selling alcohol in theatres. They do make an awful lot of money from it as well.
Precisely, and you know, Dawn, they need that money. And as he's mentioned, the theatre, I was at the theatre the other night in Streatham East, and it was The Harder They Fall, the most brilliant performance ever. Everybody was dancing and applauding, and I even went backstage. It was sensational. However, you don't have to drink in the theatre and get drunk. There is a bar, and as you said, they do need that income. It's a question of behaving and respecting the actors. Those people are there, they're doing their job. They're doing the best they can. And if it's arty-farty, it's nothing to do with arty-farty. Theatre is part of our life since Shakespearean times and before. It's wonderful that we have these theatres, and the theatres we have, which are so fabulous. That one in Streatham, I couldn't believe it. I'd never been before. I was so impressed. I was so impressed with the atmosphere, with the appreciation, with the actors who gave it their heart and soul. We need this.
I'll tell you what will happen. I'll tell you what will happen.
Steve, come in for a second.
Steve, yeah. You've had your say.
Hang on, Liz.
This is what
Liz,
we
you've
need.
got to listen. We're not all, you know.
Okay, what we'll do is we'll give Liz another 10 seconds and then Steve, over to you.
This is what we need in this country.
Liz, hang on a minute, Liz.
Hang on, Steve, we're going to give Liz a few, and then...
Listen, if you ban it, people will
both Steve and Liz, we're going to have to pause because we can't hear either of you if you're both talking. I'm going to give another 10 seconds to Liz to finish what she was saying, and then we'll go over to Steve.
What I'm saying is you have to respect those actors. They need to focus as well as you do. You need to listen, not just misbehave, not just drink and get drunk. You have a bar. You need the bar, people in the bar, they know who's over drinking.
Okay.
You don't take your own drink in.
Okay, final word to Steve.
Final word.
I agree with Liz. You have to respect the actors. You shouldn't be drunk and disorderly. But I'll tell you what will happen. If you ban it, people will sneak it in.
That's a very good point, actually, they will. Thank you both very much, sir. That's etiquette expert Liz Brewer and a lifestyle commentator, Steve Miller. Thank you very, very much. Very lively debate there.
Absolutely. I'm sure you have views at home. gbnews.com/your say.
OK, yeah, this is a good afternoon Britain on GB News. Loads more coming up on today's show, so don't you dare move a muscle.
Yes, the petition demanding the UK government immediately withdraws its digital ID plans is gaining traction. Almost 900,000 signatures. That to come and more after the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, I'm here with your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Now, as we go through this weekend, there will be some fine sunny weather around for most of us, but worth bearing in mind there's also going to be a band of rain pushing its way in. We can already see that out to the west of us, a front that's going to arrive as we go through overnight and into tomorrow. Before that, though, plenty of dry weather still to come as we go through the end of today. A lot of the cloud that's developed will actually break up through the night across parts of England, Wales and into Scotland, and so some clear spells developing, especially across parts of East Anglia, where it's going to be quite chilly and some, well, locally thick fog could develop in a few spots, but elsewhere temperatures perhaps not falling quite as low as they have done through some recent nights. And then across Northern Ireland, turning increasingly cloudy and wet through the night, and some of that rain spilling into western parts of Scotland as well by dawn. Otherwise, first thing tomorrow morning, a dry start across central and eastern parts of Scotland with a bit of sunshine here and there, but turning increasingly wet from the west. A wet start across Northern Ireland, some spray on the roads, could be a bit of localised flooding as we go through the day because of some heavy persistent rain. A bit damp at times maybe across parts of Wales and southwest England through the morning, but a drier, sunnier picture the further east you are. Through the day we are going to see that band of rain continue to edge a little bit further eastward, so eventually clearing away from Northern Ireland with some heavier rain pushing into parts of southwest Scotland in particular, and some of that rain fringing into parts of western Wales and southwest England as well. Drier towards the east always, and some decent sunshine in which it will feel relatively warm as temperatures peak in the high teens Celsius. More wet weather across many western areas as we go through tomorrow evening. It's always going to stay that bit drier across central and eastern parts with not a huge amount of rain arriving here. Some rain though may linger across parts of the southeast into Sunday. Otherwise it's looking drier for many as we go through Sunday and into next week.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benamar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Oh, yes. It's pretty crass and crude in places, but it is basically making fun of Hitler. And it's a shady shyster producer who politely shtups old ladies to get investment money. And he figures out, with the help of a young, twitchy accountant, that if they take a lot of money in, put on a show that's guaranteed to flop, they won't have to repay the money, and then they're going to do a runner to Brazil. And of course, they think that Springtime for Hitler is the ideal show, and the guy that plays Franz, who's the writer of it, has like a sort of tin pot hat and these pigeons that harmonise with swastikas on their back. For me, he kind of stole the show. I thought he was wonderful. But they basically put on this show, and of course it becomes a hit. And people think that it's a satire when they were trying to outrage and horrify people and get the show to close.
Because they learned that they could make more money with a flop than they could with a hit.
Yes, because they don't have to repay anybody.
Yeah.
So that was the idea behind all of that. It's wonderfully done. This was at the Meunier Chocolate Factory before. I didn't love it quite as much there. I just thought it was a little bit cramped. And this is a show that it's broad. It needs big moments, big swings. I liked it. It's on at the Garrick. It's all the way through till January. I just grinned all the way through. It's brilliantly done. Everyone on stage. Andy Nyman in the lead as Max Bialystock is absolutely sensational, filling very big Nathan Lane and Zero Mostel boots. But I think the whole cast is great. I just think everyone is up there absolutely going for it. And you saw it, no?
My mouth was on the floor at some moments. I mean, it is bawdy, it is outrageous.
And the show stands up. It's still relevant. It's still, about possibly what's going on in the world everywhere as well, and fascism and dictatorships, but also about the proper use of satire.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Friday, the 26th of September already. Here's Tom Harwood and I'm Dawn Neeson.
I'm announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament.
That was the words of the Prime Minister this morning, but backlash is now growing as the government announces every adult in the country is to be handed mandatory digital ID cards.
The PM hopes these IDs will prevent people working illegally. But is this unacceptable state control? And will it even work? Reform UK leader Nigel Farage isn't impressed.
I do not see a single benefit to the government having digital ID other than them controlling what we do.
Well, we're told that this new ID system will help clamp down on illegal migration, but at the same time, legal migration has rocketed to 775,000 in the year to May last year.
I'm in London here, where Sir Keir Starmer has declared open war with Reform UK. He says he wants an open fight now between Labour and Reform over immigration and issues that they care about. The Tories are withering on the vine. The next election is hovering into view.
In other news, the former Liberal Democrat leader, Sir Ming Campbell, has died, aged 84.
And elsewhere, Nigel Farage is on course to be Prime Minister, leaving the Tories on the brink of extinction. That's according to a new bombshell mega poll from YouGov.
And terror charges against kneecap rapper Liam O'Hanna have been thrown out, as the judge says proceedings against the defendant were instituted unlawfully and are null. We'll give you all the political reaction.
And former Prime Minister Sir Tony Blair makes an unexpected offer to take over the running of Gaza. Sheikh Blair to the rescue?
Now, RAF airmen win the battle for vegan uniforms. Yes, the spam busters must be provided with eco-friendly boots, belts and berets on request. Putin will surely be quaking.
You know what, Tom? For a Friday, I don't even know where to start with today's news. I really don't. I mean, parts of it are completely just straightforward, insane.
Yeah.
The rest of it is quite serious, and the more you delve into it, the more serious it gets. I mean, the digital ID cards, so many of you are getting in touch about that, and we will be talking about it throughout the show.
Well, here's the thing. The Prime Minister, when he was elected, said he wants a government that will tread more lightly on everyone's lives. Do you remember that? A government that will tread more lightly on your lives.
Yes.
And now he's saying that we'll have a mandatory form of identification. Presumably, if this is to stop illegal migration, police officers will be able to stop us going about our daily work and say, do you have your digital ID? Show us your identification.
Yeah, but you've got the German accent thing. Go and show us your papers. Go on.
Show us your papers.
He's really good at that, isn't he?
So, David Cameron did that to a lot of, I think, outrage in 2009. So perhaps it's not a good idea to say that too many times.
If you're outraged by Tom, please do get in touch. There's a lot of you that are at gbnews.com/your say about all of this, much more after the headlines with Sophia.
Dawn, thank you. Very good afternoon. It's just gone 1 o'clock. The top stories. The Prime Minister has unveiled plans for a free digital ID in a bid to crack down on illegal working and make it easier for people to access public services. The government says that the free ID will be held on people's phones and will simplify access to government services and replace the need for paper records. Reform UK say it's a cynical ploy to fool voters that something is being done about illegal immigration, with the Tories branding the move a desperate gimmick to stop the small boats. Shadow Work and Pension Secretary Helen Whately spoke to GB News about this earlier today.
Don't want to have a society where people can be stopped in the street and asked to show their ID. Completely opposed to that. And the fact is, this was an announcement rushed out at the last minute, and it's a last-minute thing from Keir Starmer to try and distract from all the problems. It's just a smokescreen for the failures of him and his government.
Announcing that news at the Global Progress Action Summit in London this morning, the Prime Minister also used his speech to insist that centre-left parties are not, quote, dying out. He used his keynote address to say that it was time to directly confront challenges in society. In his speech, he hit out at Tommy Robinson and other cynical political opponents. He added that people are very disappointed with the pace of change and that Labour must reclaim patriotism from Reform UK. Now, former leader of the Liberal Democrats, Lord Ming Campbell, has died at the age of 84. Walter Menzies Campbell, often known as Ming, had a parliamentary career spanning 5 decades and served as leader of the party between 2006 and 2007. His grandson praised him in a statement, saying, "Like so many of us, I greatly benefited from Ming's advice and guidance over the years. I saw him as a warm and caring friend and colleague." Elsewhere, Nigel Farage is on course to be the next Prime Minister, according to a new YouGov poll. According to the MRP polling prediction, if there were to be an election held tomorrow, there would be a hung parliament, with Reform UK winning 311 of the 650 seats, just 15 short of the winning line of 326. In practice, it would be impossible for anyone other than the party leader to secure the largest number of MP backers and ultimately become Prime Minister. A multi-billion-pound boost is coming to Britain's high streets, parks and public spaces. The government's announced up to £5 billion for its new Pride in Place programme, backing 339 neighbourhoods to lead local renewal. That includes £2 million a year for a decade in 169 areas, totalling at £3.5 billion, alongside £1.5 billion already pledged to 75 other communities. Now, nearly 2 in 3 head teachers say that Ofsted's new inspection regime will damage their well-being even more than the old system. A survey of more than 1,000 school and college leaders found that the vast majority are unhappy with the reforms, which replace single grades with report cards. Union leader Pepe de Lacio called the findings deeply worrying, warning that the changes could deter people from becoming teachers altogether. And a rare Asian elephant calf has been born at Blackpool Zoo after a 2-year pregnancy. The baby elephant, Zaya, arrived on the evening of the 2nd of September when her mother, Tara, delivered her first offspring. The zoo staff in Blackpool had spent years preparing for this moment, implementing careful planning to manage any potential complications during the lengthy pregnancy and birth. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. Before I hand you back to Tom and Dawn, let's quickly check in on the markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of the markets this afternoon. The pound will buy you 1.13 $1.334 and €1.144. The price of gold is £2,807.24 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 9,246 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Back to our top story, the introduction of mandatory digital ID cards for all Britons.
Announcing this government will make a new free of charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that. Because decent, pragmatic, fair-minded people, they want us to tackle the issues that they see around them.
Yes, Sir Keir Starmer has said the Brit card will help to curb illegal immigration by preventing migrants from slipping into the shadow economy.
But the plans have faced serious criticism, with nearly over 900,000 people now. It's changed as I was speaking. Over 900,000 people signing a petition demanding Number 10 reverse the policy.
Yeah, the Tories have branded the move a desperate gimmick. Earlier, GB News spoke to Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary Helen Whatley.
We don't want to have a society where people can be stopped in the street and asked to show their ID. Completely opposed to that. And the fact is, this was an announcement rushed out at the last minute, and it's a last-minute thing from Keir Starmer to try and distract from all the problems. It's just a smokescreen for the failures of him and his government.
Well, for their part, the Liberal Democrats say they can't support the move. They tweeted, "People shouldn't be criminalised just because they don't want to hand over their private data."
Yes, and meanwhile, Reform UK leader Farage also raised concerns over state interference.
I do not see a single benefit to the government having digital ID other than them controlling what we do, what we spend and where we go. And we, in Reform, are wholly opposed to it in every single way.
Going terribly well so far. GB News political editor Christopher Hope joins us now.
That's right. Hello, Dawn. Hello, Tom. Yeah, a big speech. All the entire team, or a lot of the senior players behind Keir Starmer were in the audience watching that happen there. As he set out, he took the gloves off and said he's now in an open fight with Reform UK, and the Tories will wither on the vine. The central part of it, of course, is this new idea to have mandatory digital ID by 2029 at the latest. And with me now is Rosie Writing, who's a Labour MP. Rosie Writing, 900,000 people are opposing your plan. Are you on the wrong side of the argument?
No, I mean, we've been really clear that at the moment people are coming to this country and working illegally in the shadow workforce. That's not something that's okay. It means that workers get exploited, but also it is a pull factor for people coming here in the UK. And I know from conversations that I have with my constituents that people really want us to address the issue of legal migrants. And these digital IDs that mean that you have to have a digital ID in order to have the right to work is a really key part of lowering illegal migration.
But why should we all have to have digital IDs? Because you guys can't control your borders, our borders.
Because it's important that if you are here and you have the right to work, that you can prove it so you can get yourself a good job. At the moment, we already have that, by the way. When you start a new job, you'll know you have to take your passport and get your passport scanned. But what this does is it really closes that loophole of illegal work so that people who do come here won't be able to have that work.
This surely is a sledgehammer to crack a nut. The nut is, how do you stop tens of thousands of small boat crossings and then when they arrive disappearing into the economy? Why not deal with that rather than make us all have to carry around some form of digital ID to get to work?
Well, I think that is dealing with that, because one of the reasons that people come here is because they feel as though they can get a job and they can work illegally, and we are cracking down on that, and that is a pull factor for illegal migrants coming into this country. So by introducing these digital IDs, that is exactly what we're doing. We are dealing with that.
Today, I think, was a very significant speech from Sir Keir Starmer, one of the most significant I've seen. He said there he's in an open fight now with Reform UK. He said this: the next election is not going to be between Labour and the Conservative. They are withering on the vine. It's an open fight now between Labour and Reform UK. Were you expecting that?
It's something that I felt it in my own seat. We had local elections in May. I now have a Reform-run council. You have conversations on the doorstep, and you can feel that we're at a crossroads in our country, and that is between a progressive Labour government or division with Reform UK. And I think Keir Starmer was right to acknowledge that we're at this important point. But also, right now, as a country, we can either choose to carry on with renewal with Labour, or with Reform, we can choose division and decline.
You also said that the left have been too squeamish to say things that are clearly true. What are those things?
Well, look, I knock doors in my constituency. I speak to people regularly. I understand that people are concerned about immigration, and I don't think it's for us to tell them they're wrong about that. It's, you know, they're right to be concerned. The system that we inherited from the Conservatives was an absolute mess. They left our borders completely out of control. But what we need to do is we need to talk to those people about those issues, understand their very valid concerns, but tell them what we are doing, things like the digital ID cards to crack down on illegal working, what we are doing to lower the numbers.
And perhaps not say, if you're concerned about immigration, you're a racist.
No, I mean, that's I have, like I said, lots of conversations with my constituents on the doorsteps who want to talk about immigration with me, and I think it's right that as their elected official that we have those conversations and talk to them about what we are doing to lower the numbers.
He called for patriotic renewal, respect for the flag, and almost owning the Union Jack again. That's important.
It's really important. I love our country. I'm proud to be an elected member of our government. But when I look at our country, what we've done throughout history, I feel proud. I feel incredibly proud to be British. But I also think what being British is coming together in difficult times, and we are in a difficult time. And what Reform UK are doing is they're exploiting that difficult time at the moment and using it to divide our country. But what being patriotic is what this Labour government is standing for, renewing our country and looking forward to the future.
Rosie Writing, thank you for joining us here in central London at this conference. I do think both that this is a moment when I think the gloves are off now between Labour and Reform UK, and increasingly the Tory party shrinking into the rearview mirror ahead of the next general election.
Really interesting stuff there. Chopper, thanks indeed for bringing us that at the heart of the venue where this policy was announced.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, absolutely. I still have so many questions. OK, so let's see if we can get some answers from Conservative MP and former Defence Minister Sir Gavin Williamson. Gavin, good to see you. What do you make of this policy?
I think it's an absolutely dreadful policy. The idea that they're going to infringe all of our civil liberties on something where there's already checks available. If you want to get a job, you've got to provide national insurance number, you've got to provide ID that can be available through passport or driving license, and this will be badly run, it'll be incredibly expensive, and there's going to be creep on it. It's going to go from smashing sort of illegal migrants from sort of coming into this country, and it will be extended into so many different areas in the future. It's very worrying.
It does seem strange that the government is sort of speaking out two halves of its mouth. On the one hand, they're saying the only way you're going to be interacting with your digital ID is when you get a new job. That's the only time you're going to need to show it to someone. But if that's the case, well, then how are you going to discover any illegal migrants? I mean, surely you're going to need to do spot checks of people to demand to see their papers, or their digital papers, I suppose, if you're going to find where the illegal migrants are.
Tom, you're absolutely right. We're going to move from a country that's always protected our civil liberties to a papers, please society. It's not just going to stop in terms of employment. It's going to move into healthcare. It's going to move into so many different areas. And it's really disingenuous of the Prime Minister. He started off by saying, I'm going to smash the gangs. Now he's saying, I'm going to smash your civil liberties. And this is not going to stop at just just an employment check. It goes against all of our instincts in this country. It's just the wrong move, and it's going to cost billions of pounds. And you look at some of the people who've been pushing this, Tony Blair, this agenda to be pushed. I imagine there'll be many of the companies that end up delivering this scheme.
Gavin, they don't even have a mandate for this. I don't remember them mentioning it once in the run-up to the election, and certainly not in the manifesto.
Well, you touched on it right at the start about treading lightly on people's lives. This is just like a stampede, elephants crushing us all, as they're sort of because they can't deal with the issue that people are so concerned about by migration. They seem to take a sort of Tony Blair-esque idea that he tried and failed to get through, reheat it, and it's going to cost us billions. And the impact, I mean, where does it stop? Where will they be able to track a digital ID? Will they be able to see how many times we go to the pub? If we go to the pub too often, are we going to be declined healthcare services? Now, this sounds all fanciful, but this is the type of thinking that will probably develop and come out from this.
Gavin, is there a risk that people like yourself, people in the Reform Party, people in the Liberal Democrats as well, sort of make the highfalutin philosophical argument here that we're a freeborn nation of ancient liberties, we can trace back to Magna Carta, and sort of do stuff that doesn't really affect people's lives? Could it be that the average Brit actually does like the firm smack of government a bit more than the average politician?
That could always be the case, but I think it's about trying to look at this realistically. How much is this going to cost? It's going to cost billions and billions and billions of pounds. What are the constraints on it? Well, the Prime Minister has already expanded what it was about to do in the space of 24 hours, from a briefing from Number 10 to going out onto the stage to explain it. It's important that actually, whether you're Conservative, whether you're Liberal Democrat, whether you're Reform, we actually all fight this together, because it is about protecting taxpayers' cash, but also making sure that the government just doesn't creep into every aspect of our lives, because I think that's important to protect those liberties.
Finally, Gavin,
Sorry, yes.
If the Conservatives get back into power, would you abolish this? Would you get us to scrap it?
I think absolutely yes. I mean, we had this fight once before. Tom referred to David Cameron getting into a bit of trouble fighting it. It's one of these things that civil servants, people like Tony Blair, love to push. Europeans have it, Britain should have it. And actually, Britain is a very different place. And actually, we don't want a papers, please society.
OK, Gavin, thank you very much. That's former Defence Minister Sir Gavin Williamson there. Thank you very much.
Well, of course, at GB News, we like to hear what you think. Every day we're running our poll of the day, and today, of course, there's only one thing on the menu. Are digital IDs an attack on our freedoms? We're bringing you the live results throughout the day, so be sure to stay tuned.
Yeah, the final result will indeed be announced later in Martin Daubney's show. And for all our latest polls, news and how to vote, just go to gbnews.com/poll.
But now some breaking news for you. Barry George, who was cleared of Jill Dando's murder, has been charged with rape and 2 counts of indecent assault. GB News Home and Security editor Mark White has more.
Well, Barry George is a name that will be instantly recognisable to many of our audience, because it was, of course, that very high-profile murder of Jill Dando back in 1999, when Barry George was eventually arrested, put on trial and convicted of the television presenter's murder. He was later cleared, though, by the Court of Appeal in 2007 after forensic evidence was declared sort of null and void, and that made the conviction unsafe, and Barry George was released at that point, cleared of all charges against him. But now there has been an investigation into an unrelated matter, allegations of rape and sexual assault, non-recent allegations dating back to 1987 against a woman who was a teenager at the time. time. That has been carefully considered, the Crown Prosecution Service say, in terms of the evidence provided to them by a team of Met detectives, and they have decided to go forward with the prosecution. And so Barry George has been now formally charged with 1 count of rape and 2 counts of sexual assault. He'll appear at Westminster Magistrates Court on the 29th of October. And we've had a statement from the Crown Prosecution Service prosecutor for the CPS in South London, Lionel Iden. Now, he says that we remind all concerned that proceedings against the suspect are active and he has a right to a fair trial. We recognise there is likely to be considerable interest in this case. However, it's vital that there should be no reporting, commentary or sharing of information online which could in any way prejudice these proceedings. So a warning, as you would expect from the Crown Prosecution Service, given that this is a very high-profile individual.
Yeah, Mark White, thank you very much. Breaking news there.
Absolutely. And given that warning, I think it's best we leave that there.
Yeah, no.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and there's plenty more still to come.
Yeah, terror charges against kneecap rapper Liam O'Hanna have been thrown out as the judge says proceedings against the defendant were institutionally unlawful and are null. We'll give you the political reaction to that one.
But after the break, former Prime Minister Sir Tony Blair makes an unexpected offer to take over the running of Gaza. Is it back to the 1920s with a new British mandate for Palestine? Well, all of that to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
OK, good afternoon, Britain. It is 27 minutes past 1 now. Thank you for your company. Now, Sir Tony Blair is reportedly ready to run Gaza once Israel's war with Hamas has ended.
Yes, the former Prime Minister, who is working on a plan to end the conflict, is now offering to lead an interim government in Gaza.
Tony Blair, Middle East, what could possibly go wrong there? Well, that's with the hopes of making way for the Palestinian Authority to control the Gaza Strip eventually once again.
Well, shall we speak to the Telegraph columnist Jake Wallace-Simons on this? Jake, there's a part of me that is romantically attracted to this idea.
That's because you're weird,
there
Tom.
were fewer problems in the Middle East when the Brits ran most of it.
Oh.
Right. I'm not sure. I mean, it's interesting, because the British mandate, collapsed under pressure from Israeli forces and from nascent Israeli forces and of course, Arabs. The whole thing was a bit of a bloodbath. But really, it shows that Israel was an anti-colonialist project. It occurred in pressure against the British Empire, which withdrew and gave the land to the Jews. So this feels like a return, as you say, to the imperial days, where we can go back and sort of tell people what to do, draw borders on maps, and all the natives will behave themselves. And that really has been the tone of a lot of the international diplomacy over the past few days. We saw the recognition of a state of Palestine taking place in the UN General Assembly without any representatives of Israel there, or indeed of the Palestinian Authority there, because they were banned from getting to New York by President Trump. So all of these plans seem to be imposed from 1,000 feet on the people in the region. And history shows that way disaster has lain in the past. I don't need to mention the Iraq War for us all to have that fresh in our minds. I mean, Tony Blair, for a long time he's fantasized about being president of Europe, and that didn't happen. Now he seems to be wanting to make himself emir of Gaza.
Why do you think he's so keen on this particular role?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that, to look at it seriously, though, I think an international force has got to be part of the solution in Gaza, because it is a devastated place. The Palestinian Authority, which is intended to be under this plan the eventual recipients of this territory, is corrupt, sponsors terrorism, is brutal, authoritarian and anti-democratic. The president's serving the 21st year of his 4-year term, and is openly anti-Semitic as well. So it's not in any shape to govern the Strip. Indeed, it was kicked out by Hamas a few years ago in a bloody civil war. Hamas obviously can't govern the Strip. The local clans will do their best, but it's hardly stability. Something needs to be done internationally. That's without question. And the fact that Trump is putting this plan forward does speak well of it. Often Trump and the Israelis work closely behind the scenes, and he puts forward a plan that the Israelis can't because it would be rejected because they're Jews. So it could have been done in collaboration with Israel behind the scenes. But really the question is Tony Blair the man for the job? That's what it boils down to. And it strikes me that his track record in Iraq in particular does make him something of a hate figure and a figure of some question. But also, if we look back at previous arrangements like the Oslo Accords, for example, that dissolved into blood and tears when the Palestinian side unleashed the terror of the Second Intifada. So it's a very, very difficult situation that requires a lot of expertise. I'm not sure we can find that from Blair.
But if we get international arbitration in some way, if there is a new sort of form that is running the Palestinian territories, could you see a world where there could be a two-state solution, having ripped Hamas out of the heart of the running of these places?
Look, I mean, I am in favour of Palestinian self-determination and a peaceful Palestine as much as anybody else. But I think that taking Hamas out of the equation would only be part of the problem and wouldn't solve it. Don't forget that on many occasions in the past, the Palestinian side has rejected the offer of a state because it's resorted to terror, even outside of Hamas, the Palestinian Authority. In 2008, for example, Ehud Olmert offered them 100% pretty much of what they wanted, 94% of the West Bank with 6% of Israeli territory to make up the 100%. Jerusalem would be divided with the Palestinian capital there. The Israelis would withdraw from the old city of Jerusalem, giving that into international hands, and allow a limited number of Palestinians to come back with financial compensation for the rest. That's only one example. Camp David in 2000. President Clinton said just last year that you can't believe what they walked away from, and they shouldn't be surprised if 25 years later the offer still isn't there. So the existing Palestinian Authority, who are supposedly the moderates, anti-democratic, brutal, anti-Semitic, sponsor terror, they pay cash handouts to terrorists as incentives, they're in no fit to govern the Palestinian area either, let alone Hamas. And so this is serious, deep problems. And just lastly, from the point of view of the Israelis, they're the ones who have got to live beside these people. If this state goes badly wrong, goes south, becomes an Iranian client state, becomes taken over by Hamas, as Gaza was after the Israelis withdrew in 2005, it's Israeli kids who are going to suffer death and destruction. It's the Israeli army that's going to have to go in to fight these people, and the international community won't like that either. So you'd be forgiven a certain amount of cynicism coming from the Israeli side, while these solutions are parachuted in from 100 feet with Tony Blair steering the plane.
Jake, we are going to have to leave it there, unfortunately. We are running out of time. That's Telegraph columnist Jake Willis-Simmons there. Thank you very much for joining us.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Plenty more to come.
Yes, a petition demanding that the UK government immediately commits to not introducing a digital ID card is gaining a lot of traction, as you can see on your screens now. All of that and much more after your latest news headlines with Sophia.
Dawn, thank you. Very good afternoon. Your top stories at 1:30. The Prime Minister has unveiled plans for free digital ID in a bid to crack down on illegal working and make it easier for people to access public services. Speaking at a summit this morning, he revealed the news, saying it's an enormous opportunity, but it does face growing backlash as Reform UK call it a cynical ploy to fool voters, and the Tories brand it a desperate gimmick to stop the votes. Former leader of the Liberal Democrats, Lord Ming Campbell, has died at the age of 84. Walter Menzies Campbell, often known as Ming, had a parliamentary career spanning 5 decades and served as the leader of the party between 2006 and 2007. Nigel Farage is on course to be the next Prime Minister, according to a new YouGov poll. This also comes as Reform UK hits 250,000 members, making it the second largest political party in the UK. And a multi-billion-pound boost is coming to Britain's high streets, parks and public spaces. The government's announced up to £5 billion for its new Pride in Place programme, backing 339 neighbourhoods to lead local renewal. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you, Sophia. OK, so loads more coming up on today's show.
Yes, terror charges against kneecap rapper Liam O'Hanna have been thrown out as the judge says proceedings against the defendant were initiated unlawfully and are null. We'll explain all of what's going on there.
All of that and much more to come. This is GB News at Britain's News Channel.
Hello, very good day to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After a largely sunny day for many of us yesterday, today is going to be a fair bit cloudier for many because the high pressure that's dominated our weather through much of this week has shifted away a little bit further towards the east, allowing for a bit more of an easterly flow across England in particular, and so we're dragging in some cloud from the east. As a result, through this afternoon, central and eastern parts of England are going to be pretty cloudy, and some of that cloud filtering into parts of Wales, southwest England, even across eastern parts of Scotland, and there may be 1 or 2 showers around as well. Where the cloud's thick, particularly in the southeast, a bit of a fresh feel to things, but further north and west with some sunshine, feeling a fair bit warmer. Then, as we go through this evening, actually, there's a chance of some cloud breaking up across parts of East Anglia and Kent, for example, so some late sunshine here perhaps, but also a few showers to watch out for. Staying cloudier there across much of central England, large chunks of Wales and southern England as well. Meanwhile, across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland and some areas of northern England, there will be a few breaks in the clouds, some late sunshine for quite a few places here. Staying mostly dry as we go overnight, not totally dry, that's because there is a band of rain coming in from the west, showers. That's going to feed in across parts of Northern Ireland, later into western Scotland as well. Elsewhere, yes, a largely dry picture, and some of the cloud will be breaking up, but there will be a little bit more cloud around than some recent nights. As a result, temperatures dropping a little bit where we get the clear skies, but perhaps not as low as recent nights for many, though across parts of the southeast of England, actually it could be again quite chilly and perhaps a bit more mist and fog than we've seen through some recent mornings here. As we go through tomorrow then, this band of rain across western parts is going to be quite heavy, could cause some impacts across parts of Northern Ireland, western, southwestern Scotland, 50, maybe 70 millimetres of rain building up in just 5 to 6 hours perhaps in some places, but across central and eastern parts, a drier story.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Southbound travellers on the M74 are currently experiencing substantial delays owing to an earlier traffic incident situated between junctions 7 and 8, which has resulted in congestion stretching back to junction 4. Additionally, there is significant disruption impacting train services on the London Overground, causing inconvenience for commuters travelling to and from Stratford Station. Simultaneously, passengers on the northern route are facing travel interruptions as bus services have been temporarily replacing trains between Corkickle and Whitehaven due to scheduled maintenance work. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 38 minutes past 1. Now, the terrorism case against kneecap rapper Liam O'Hanna has been dropped.
Yeah, the judge ruled proceedings against the defendant were institutionally unlawful and null.
Well, Mr. O'Hanna, who performs under the stage name of, get this, Mo Chara, was accused of displaying a flag in support of proscribed terror organisation Hezbollah at a gig in London in November last year.
Yeah, thankfully we have someone to explain this, and that is Will Godley, a GB News national reporter. Will, explain this, because legally it's a technicality that this has happened, isn't it, we think?
It's a technicality, yeah, but it's an error. They've messed up when they brought the charges, the police brought the charges on Liam O'Hanna. They didn't get the correct permissions from the Attorney General that they needed to have done so in order to bring those charges back in May of terror offences. And so because they didn't get those permissions, now the magistrate today decided that they lawfully couldn't go ahead with these proceedings. So it was chucked out. That was the argument made by Liam O'Hanna's lawyers today in court, and that's what the magistrate agreed with, of course, obviously after he was accused of flying that Hezbollah flag in November. And there was full of sort of celebrations outside the court afterwards today. Of course, we're seeing pictures now of Liam O'Hanna arriving in court in that very iconic bandana that he often wears, balaclava of the Irish flag where he's from. And today, afterwards, after this announcement was made in the magistrate's court, he was proving, as an Irishman, never too early to drink a Guinness. That was how he was choosing to celebrate. Before he did that, though, he did speak to his fans outside court and also to the media as well. This is what he had to say.
Your attempts to silence us have failed because we're right and you're wrong. We said we would fight you in your court and we would win. Today we have.
Well, there's been lots of reaction to this as well over in Ireland, but here as well. Kneecap's manager, Daniel Lambert, said the trio are on the right side of history after this verdict, and Northern Ireland First Minister Michelle O'Neill welcomed the move. She said these charges were part of a calculated attempt to silence those who stand up and speak out against the Israeli genocide in Gaza. Sinn Féin leader Mary Lou MacDonald also saying this is an attempt to shut him up, to silence protest, but it's failed. He's free. Kneecap are not the story. The genocide is the story. The CPS said they could challenge this decision. That's something that they're considering taking legal action. But for now, Kneecap have always said this is about Gaza and not about them.
I mean, absolutely fascinating here that this is all collapsing, not because these people have been found innocent, because they haven't. The case has collapsed because the authorities didn't seek the right permissions or the Attorney General didn't grant the right opinions. Now, who's the Attorney General? It's Lord Hermer. Now, could Lord Hermer have accidentally forgotten to give consent? Could Lord Hermer have... We know where he stands on the very far left side of politics. I mean, it's not a million miles away to... It's not a crazy thing to think that the government might have wanted this to collapse, or at least some elements of the government.
I mean, it's highly embarrassing for them to have a case like this collapse. The CPS, of course, want to dot all the I's, cross all the T's, make sure the paperwork is all OK. It costs a huge amount of money to get to where they are, even without the case entering a Crown Court. Still huge amounts of time and money going into getting a case to where it is. So they will not have wanted this to fall apart, but it has done, and NECAP seem very, very happy.
Well, Will Godley, thanks indeed for bringing us all of that.
Yeah, and then just it has been, it's not been decided yet as to whether the case will be appealed, so there could be more to come on that.
Some interesting politics, perhaps, there. In other news, Lord Ming Campbell, the former leader of the Lib Dems, he's died at the age of 84, the party have announced.
Yeah, he first stood as a candidate for the Liberal Democrats in 1976, and he did not win his constituency for 11 years, though.
But in his first career, of course, he was a sprinter. He held the UK 100-metre record from 1967 to 1974 and ran in the 1964 Tokyo Olympic Games, being dubbed the Flying Scotsman.
Scottish Liberal Democrat leader Alex Cole-Hamilton, MSP, and Sir Menzies was one of the most respected politicians of his generation.
Well, we're joined now by our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, with more.
Yes, so a huge life he had. He grew up, very ordinary background, a tenement in Glasgow. His dad was a joiner. He became an Olympic sprinter. He then became a lawyer, a QC, no less. And then on his fifth attempt, he became an MP in Parliament, and he was MP for the Liberal Democrats for North East Fife from 1987 right through till 2015, when he went into the House of Lords. But also he was briefly, for about a year and a half, Liberal Democrat leader from 2006 to 7. He took over after Charles Kennedy had to stand down because of his drinking problems. He was then replaced by Nick Clegg. I think the feeling was at that point that he was perhaps a bit old for the job, because Tony Blair was the Prime Minister, very young, David Cameron again, very young. But he will really be remembered for foreign affairs. He took a very clear opposition to the Iraq war, the legality or otherwise of that, and tributes pouring in. Gordon Brown, of course, former Labour Prime Minister, said that he was a fellow Fife MP and a friend who was always great to work with across the party lines. Nick Clegg, of course, former Deputy PM and Lib Dem leader, said, "I saw him earlier this month. He was physically frail, but just as full of political gossip, curiosity and insight as always." He said even when he disagreed with me, he did so with his trademark courtesy and wit. I will miss him greatly. And the current Lib Dem leader, Sir Ed Davey, has said he was a dedicated public servant and a true liberal giant. His principled leadership opposing the Iraq war was a mark of his morality, courage and wisdom. So a sad loss today.
Lots of lovely tributes. Thank you very much, Catherine. OK, now let's move on. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. There's loads more coming up on today's show.
Yes, the RAF Airmen have won the battle for vegan uniforms. Yes, the spam busters must be provided with eco-friendly boots, belts and berets on request. Putin will surely be quaking.
But if you are in search of some holiday sun, here is the forecast for those top European destinations for you.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're wondering where's good for the weather or heading south during the next few days, be aware there's a next hurricane approaching Portugal whilst it's staying breezy through Greece, particularly the Greek islands. Nothing too unusual about that. But for Italy, increasingly unsettled, some heavy rain and thunderstorms, particularly towards the south, and for Sicily. Across Iberia, settled on Saturday, but here's that ex-hurricane likely to bring some strong winds and heavy rain into Portugal in particular later in the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
There's a big change in the age of parents, so first-time parents are getting older and older. There's been a significant increase in the number of men over 60 becoming fathers, a 15% increase in just 1 year, and an increase in the number of babies born to foreign parents. But what's really, really concerning is that what's called the total fertility rate, that's the average number of babies that each woman has over her childbearing life, has gone down again. It is now at a record low, just 1.41 children on average per woman. And of course, we need about 2.1 to have a stable population. Now, a lot of people think, well, why don't we want the population to decline? We've been warning about burgeoning population for 50, 60 years now. But I think the really important factor to consider here is it's not really the overall size of the population that matters so much as the proportion of young to old, because that is what we need in order to have enough people working, enough people paying taxes to support people who are retired, to support people who are sick. And that is going down and down and down with huge economic consequences.
Do the figures divide it so that they can say whether the children are of African heritage or of this or of that? Does it tell you those sorts of statistics as well? And if so, what are the... What are they?
Yes, so we know the nationality of mothers who give birth. And in terms of foreign mothers, the greatest number of babies are born to women of Indian and Pakistani heritage. So that they are the biggest numbers, the biggest nationalities. But I think what's really important to note is that even with the huge and unpopular levels of immigration that we've had, even with those levels, the birth rate is still falling and the ratio of young to old is still going down.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Sorry. Good afternoon, Britain. It is coming up to 10 to 2, and I was just saying it's Planet Tom.
I was watching a romantic video about the countryside.
It involved a lot of sheep, from what I can see.
Yeah.
And for
Not
those
that sort of romantic.
And for those commenting about our relationship, no, he is not my adopted son, because I wouldn't go there. I'd much rather have a daughter, obviously.
No, you've more often referred to yourself as my mad aunt.
Mad auntie. That works. And should we move on, Tom?
Shall we? Because the RAF have won a battle to wear vegan uniforms.
OK, it comes after a long-running dispute between air crews and the Defence Chiefs.
Well, it will mean vegan servicemen will be provided with eco-friendly attire, such as wool-free berets, upon request.
OK, let's speak to former airline pilot and aviation expert Emma Henderson. Emma, good to see you. What do you make of this story?
Good to see you too. Well, it's an interesting one, isn't it? And I must admit, when I first saw the headline, I thought, oh, really? And then I thought again about it, because I kind of thought, actually, if we want to attract talent into not just the Air Force, but into any industry, we need to look at where that talent is coming from. And the world is changing. It's a rapidly changing environment. Young people's expectations of what the workplace is going to look like in the future are different than ours from when we were entering the workforce, some of us longer ago than others, obviously. And I think we need to get on board with the fact that if we're going to say we want you and we need you in our workplace environment, we also have to value people as well, or they'll just leave and go somewhere else. So,
but Emma, where does this stop? Because obviously it's going to be more expensive to produce vegan shoes or vegan berets. I mean, absolutely fine if it's just as cheap. If there's no money that has to be spent on this, I fundamentally doubt that this is a cheaper thing to do to prioritise this minority ideological belief, and that's what it is. I mean, where does this end? I mean, how many more political opinions need to be catered to in what should be an armed forces that is about protecting us?
Well, I agree with you that it is about protecting us, but we need to look at what the skills gap is. It's not actually just about putting people in boots on the ground with guns anymore, is it? We're looking at shortages in engineering, for example, and IT and language specialists, and the kind of people that the military is recruiting now are highly skilled people with degrees who could earn arguably a lot more money elsewhere. So if they're actually signing up to serve their country, why wouldn't we welcome them? And you can actually extend that argument and say, OK, well, what about women's uniforms fitting properly then? You know, maybe we need to look at this slightly differently and say we shouldn't be expecting everybody to fit into a uniform that would fit and be designed for, you know, the current demographic of the large majority of the Air Force, which is men. And this is not against men. It's just to say, you know, it's a male-dominated industry. So actually, if we're going to have other people that aren't men and aren't meat eaters, and they have these requirements, if we need them, then surely we have to cater to them and make them feel welcome and included.
Emma, one of the arguments that is raging online about this particular story is that, hold on a minute, you know, you're squeamish about eating animals and cruelty to animals, but you're willing to drop bombs on people.
Absolutely, and that's a very good question that I had to answer myself when I joined the University Air Squadron a long time ago now, 32 years ago. And I was asked that exact question as a practicing Christian, you know, how do you reconcile your faith with this? And my answer to that was, if I choose to join a fighting force and serve my country, that's my problem to reconcile, not yours. So I think that that argument would apply to anybody else that chooses to serve their country in that way. And I am a military wife. I've been a military wife for 30 years. So, you know, this is something I've seen time and again. Sometimes you can't have everything. But if you choose to serve like my husband and my family have in that way, then you have to make sacrifices and you have to choose which things matter more. But I think this is more about, you know, if you
Emma, just on that point, if you do have to make sacrifices and sort of see what matters more, isn't one of those sacrifices wearing a normal wool beret?
Potentially, yes. However, if your religion dictates that you are vegan, then actually why shouldn't we respect that? If your skill set is something that is needed by a military that is all about, you know, IT and it's a technological
Emma, I'm so
war
sorry
now.
we've run to the end of the programme, but thanks so much for joining us, Emma Henderson. Here's the weather.
Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, I'm here with your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Now, as we go through this weekend, there will be some fine sunny weather around for most of us, but worth bearing in mind there's also going to be a band of rain pushing its way in. We can already see that out to the west of us, a front that's going to arrive as we go through overnight and into tomorrow. Before that, though, plenty of dry weather still to come as we go through the end of today. A lot of the cloud that's developed will actually break up through the night across parts of England, Wales and into Scotland, and so some clear spells developing, especially across parts of East Anglia, where it's going to be quite chilly and some, well, locally thick fog could develop in a few spots, but elsewhere temperatures perhaps not falling quite as low as they have done through some recent nights. And then across Northern Ireland, turning increasingly cloudy and wet through the night, and some of that rain spilling into western parts of Scotland as well by dawn. Otherwise, first thing tomorrow morning, a dry start across central and eastern parts of Scotland with a bit of sunshine here and there, but turning increasingly wet from the west. A wet start across Northern Ireland, some spray on the roads, could be a bit of localised flooding as we go through the day because of some heavy, persistent rain. A bit damp at times, maybe across parts of Wales and southwest England through the morning, but a drier, sunnier picture the further east you are. Through the day, we are going to see that band of rain continue to edge a little bit further eastward, so eventually clearing away from Northern Ireland, with some heavier rain pushing into parts of southwest Scotland in particular, and some of that rain fringing into parts of western Wales and southwest England as well. Drier towards the east always, and some decent sunshine in which it will feel relatively warm as temperatures peak in the high teens Celsius. More wet weather across many western areas as we go through tomorrow evening. It's always going to stay that bit drier across central and eastern parts, with not a huge amount of rain arriving here. Some rain, though, may linger across parts of the southeast into Sunday. Otherwise, it's looking drier for many as we go through Sunday and into next week.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device, and as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Friday, the 26th of September. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Dawn Neeson.
I'm announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament.
Backlash grows as the government announces that every adult in the country is to be handed mandatory digital ID cards.
Yes, the Prime Minister hopes that these IDs will prevent people working illegally. Is this unacceptable levels of state control, and crucially, will it work? Well, the Reform Party leader has slammed the move.
I do not see a single benefit
to the government having digital ID other than them controlling what we do.
So Keir Starmer says that by 2029 we'll have mandatory digital IDs in this country. He says he's in an open fight now with Reform UK. But will it work and will it pull back Reform's poll lead?
And Benjamin Netanyahu is set to make a defiant UN speech as Trump warns of annexation of West Bank. The Israeli PM is arriving any moment now and we'll be there live for you.
And breaking news. Barry George is charged with rape and 2 counts of indecent assault. Mark White has the very latest.
Well, the man who was convicted and then later acquitted in the murder of Jill Dando has been charged with non-recent sexual offences dating back to 1987. He'll appear in court on the 29th of October.
Meanwhile, terror charges against kneecap rapper Liam O'Hanna have been thrown out as the judge says proceedings against the defendant were instituted unlawfully and are null. We'll give you the political reaction to that story.
Elsewhere, Nigel Farage is on course to be our next Prime Minister, leaving the Tories on the brink of extinction. That's according to a new bombshell mega poll from YouGov.
And former Liberal Democrat leader Sir Menzies Campbell has died aged 84.
Well, this digital ID backlash is growing and growing throughout this afternoon. This is the live total of the official petition on the Parliament website demanding that the government not introduce digital ID cards. It's nearing 1 million signatories, as you can see live, growing every moment.
And lots of you are very angry about it. But I haven't actually read, well, we will read as many out as we possibly can, gbnews.com/or-so, by the way. But I haven't seen anyone supporting it so far. And lots of you are asking how much it's going to cost. Keir Starmer said, oh, it's a free digital ID card for everyone. There's no such thing as free, by the way. Someone has to pay for it somewhere along the line. And who do you think that's going to be?
I just wonder, though, I think people might be slightly taken aback when opinion polls are taken on this. There's always a tension between security and liberty, and generally, even in this country, where we think we've sort of got this such hinterland of liberty, generally we do see security winning out over liberty in these sorts of polls.
Well, we shall see. We shall see what happens with that poll, won't we? And more of that coming up, by the way. But it is time now for the news headlines with Sophia Hill.
Dawn, thank you. Very good afternoon. It's just gone 2 o'clock. These are your top stories. So Keir Starmer says that he will introduce digital IDs, which will help secure Britain's borders, while giving citizens faster access to services like driving licences and childcare. The government says the free IDs will be held on people's phones and will simplify access to government services and replace the need for paper records. Reform UK say it's a cynical ploy to fool voters that something is being done about illegal immigration. The Tories are branding the move a desperate gimmick to stop the small boats. There is a petition urging the government to abandon their plan, and that's almost up at 1 million signatures today. You can see that on your screen now. Now, GB News spoke to Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary Helen Whately earlier on.
Don't want to have a society where people can be stopped in the street and asked to show their ID. Completely opposed to that. And the fact is, this was an announcement rushed out at the last minute, and it's a last-minute thing from Keir Starmer to try and distract from all the problems. It's just a smokescreen for the failures of him and his government.
Announcing that news at the Global Progress Action Summit in London this morning, the Prime Minister also used his speech to insist that centre-left parties are not, quote, dying out. He used the keynote address to say that it was time to directly confront challenges within society. In his speech, he hit out at Tommy Robinson and, quote, cynical political opponents. He added that people are very disappointed with the pace of change at the moment and that Labour must reclaim patriotism from Reform UK. Breaking this afternoon, the man who was wrongly convicted of killing Jill Dando has today been charged with rape and indecent assault. Barry George has been charged with sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl almost 40 years ago. The 65-year-old would have been in his 20s when the alleged attack happened. Mr George was convicted of the 1999 murder of Jill Dando, but it was overturned on appeal. Elsewhere, former leader of the Liberal Democrats, Lord Ming Campbell, has died at the age of 84. Walter Menzies Campbell, often known as Ming, had a parliamentary career spanning 5 decades, and he served as leader of the party between 2006 and 2007. His grandson has praised him in a statement, saying, "Like so many of us, I greatly benefited from Ming's advice and guidance over the years." He also praised him as a warm and caring friend and colleague. Now, Nigel Farage is on course to be the next Prime Minister. That's according to a new YouGov poll. According to the MRP polling prediction, if there was an election held tomorrow, there would be a hung parliament, but Reform would have won 311 of the 650 seats, just 15 short of the winning line of 326. In practice, it would be impossible for anyone other than the party leader to secure the largest number of MP backers and ultimately become Prime Minister. Meanwhile, a defiant Sir Keir Starmer has vowed to lead from the front into the next general election, despite speculation over his future. The Prime Minister dismissed calls for wholesale change in national politics from Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham, insisting that Labour can and will deliver for the country. Sir Keir also branded the Conservatives, quote, basically dead, and urged voters to reject what he called the political of grievance from Nigel Farage's Reform UK. Andy Burnham, meanwhile, says that he remains completely committed to Manchester, though he has not ruled out a future leadership bid. Now, nearly 2 in 3 head teachers say that Ofsted's new inspection regime will damage their well-being even more than the old system. A survey of more than 1,000 school and college leaders found that the vast majority are unhappy with the reforms, which replace single grades with report cards. Union leader Pepe de Lacio called the findings deeply worrying, warning that the changes could deter people from becoming teachers and school leaders. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in half an hour.
Good afternoon, Britain. Commotion at the United Nations as delegates walk out in the face of Benjamin Netanyahu's speech. The Israeli Prime Minister has just got up to the lectern and faced a walkout of diplomats from other countries.
As you can see, there are live pictures on your screen and now emptying seats as Netanyahu takes to the stand. Let's have a listen.
Languishing in the dungeons of Gaza. Ladies and gentlemen, last year, I stood at this podium and I showed this map. This map. It shows the curse of Iran's terror axis. This axis threatened the peace of the entire world. It threatened the stability of our region and the very existence of my country, Israel. Iran was rapidly developing a massive nuclear weapons program and a massive ballistic missile program. These were meant not only to destroy Israel, they were meant also to threaten the United States and blackmail nations everywhere. From Gaza, Yahya Sinwar dispatched waves of Hamas terrorists. They stormed into Israel on October 7th and committed acts of unspeakable savagery. From Lebanon, Hassan Nasrallah had launched thousands of missiles and rockets at our cities, terrorizing our citizens. In Syria, the murderous dictator Assad hosted Iran's forces, tightening a noose of death around our throats. In Yemen, the Houthis launched ballistic missiles at Israel while choking global trade at the mouth of the Red Sea. So what's happened over the past year? We've hammered the Houthis, including yesterday. We crushed the bulk of Hamas's terror machine. We crippled Hezbollah, taking out most of its leaders and much of its weapons arsenal. You remember those beepers, the pagers? We paged Hezbollah, and believe me, they got the message. And thousands of terrorists dropped to the ground. We destroyed Assad's armaments in Syria. We deterred Iran's Shiite militias in Iraq. And most importantly, and above anything else that I could say to you or that we did in this past year, in this past decade, we devastated Iran's atomic weapons and ballistic missiles programs. So here's where things stand today. Half the Houthi leadership in Yemen, gone. Yahya Sinwar in Gaza, gone. Hassan Nasrallah in Lebanon, gone. The Assad regime in Syria, gone. Those militias in Iraq, well, they're still deterred. And their leaders, if they attack Israel, will also be gone. And for Iran's top military commanders and its top atomic bomb scientists, well, they're gone too. Israel's 12-day war with Iran, which I renamed Operation Rising Lion, that's from the Bible. This 12-day war will go down in the annals of military history. Our daring pilots neutralized Iran's missile defenses and took control of the skies over Tehran. And you saw this. Israeli fighter pilots and American B-2 pilots bombed Iran's nuclear enrichment sites. I want to thank President Trump for his bold and decisive action. President Trump and I promised to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons, and we delivered on that promise. We removed an existential threat to Israel, and a mortal threat to the civilized world. We lifted a dark cloud that could have claimed millions and millions of lives. But, ladies and gentlemen, we must remain vigilant. We must remain absolutely clear-minded and vigilant. We must not allow Iran to rebuild its military nuclear capacities. Iran's stockpiles of enriched uranium, these stockpiles must be eliminated. And tomorrow, UN Security Council sanctions on Iran must be snapped back. Thanks to the resolve of our people, the courage of our soldiers, and the bold decisions we took, Israel rebounded from its darkest day to deliver one of the most stunning military comebacks in history. But we're not done yet. The final remnants of Hamas are holed up in Gaza City. They vow to repeat the atrocities of October 7th again and again and again, no matter how diminished their forces. That is why Israel must finish the job. That is why we want to do so as fast as possible. Ladies and gentlemen, much of the world no longer remembers October 7th. But we remember. Israel remembers October 7th. On that day, well, I'll tell you, you can remember October 7th too. You see this large pin here? It's a QR code. What I ask you to do is hold up your phones, zoom in, and you too will see why we fight and why we must win. It's all in here. On October 7th, Hamas carried out the worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust. They slaughtered 1,200 innocent people including over 40 Americans and foreign nationals from dozens of countries represented here. They beheaded men. They raped women. They burnt babies alive. They burnt babies alive in front of their parents. What monsters! And these monsters took more than 250 people hostage. And those included Holocaust survivors, grandmothers and their grandchildren. Who takes hostage grandmothers and grandchildren? Hamas does. So far, we've brought home 207 of these hostages, but 48 still remain in the dungeons of Gaza. 20 of them are alive, starved, tortured, deprived of any daylight, deprived of humanity. These are the names of the 20 living hostages. Matan Angrest, Gali and Zerv Berman, brothers, Elkanah Buchbot, Rom Braslavsky, Nimrod Cohen, Ariel and David Cunyo, another pair of brothers, Guy Gilboa Dalal, Eviatar David. You saw the picture of Eviatar David, emaciated, forced to dig his own grave. Maxim Herkin, Eitan Horn, Segev Kalfon, Bar Kupperstein, Omri Meran, Eitan Moore, Yosef Chaim Ochana, Alon Ohel, Avinatam Or, and Matan Tsengarker. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to do something I've never done before. I want to speak from this forum directly to those hostages through loudspeakers. I've surrounded Gaza with massive loudspeakers connected to this microphone in the hope that our dear hostages will hear my message. And I'll say it first in Hebrew and then in English. Achenu הגיבורים, מדבר ראש הממשלה בנימין נתניהו. אני פונה עליכם מעל בימת האו"ם. לא שכחנו אתכם, אפילו לא לשנייה. העם כולו איתכם, ואנחנו לא נשקוט ולא נרפה עד שנחזיר את כולכם הביתה, החיים והחללים כאחד. Our brave heroes. This is Prime Minister Netanyahu speaking to you live from the United Nations. We have not forgotten you, not even for a second. The people of Israel are with you. We will not falter and we will not rest until we bring all of you home. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks to special efforts by Israeli intelligence, my words are now also being carried. They're streamed live to the cell phones of Gazans. So to the remaining Hamas leaders and to the jailers of our hostages, I now say, lay down your arms. Let my people go. Free the hostages. All of them, the whole 48. Free the hostages now. If you do, you will live. If you don't, Israel will hunt you down. Ladies and gentlemen, if Hamas agrees to our demands, the war could end right now. Gaza would be demilitarized, Israel would retain overriding security control, and a peaceful civilian authority would be established by Gazans and others committed to peace with Israel. And of course, you understand that the war in Gaza has affected every Israeli. But I'm sure there are people in New York or in London or in Melbourne and elsewhere who are probably thinking, what does all of this have to do with me? And the answer is everything. because our enemies are your enemies. So let's do something else. So first at the UN, let's do a pop quiz. And raise your hand if you know the answer. Here's the first question. Who shouts death to America? Is it A, Iran, B, Hamas, C, Hezbollah, D, the Houthis, or E, all of the above? All of the above. Correct, all of the above. Second question. Who has murdered Americans and Europeans in cold blood? Is it A, Al-Qaeda, B, Hamas, C, Hezbollah, D, Iran, or E, all of the above? All of the above. Correct. Again. So here's the point I wanted to make. Our enemies hate all of us with equal venom. They want to drag the modern world back to the past, to a dark age of violence, fanaticism, and terror. I think many of you are already feeling in your own societies the radical Islamist surge. You know, I'm sure you do, you know deep down that Israel is fighting your fight. So I want to tell you a secret. Behind closed doors, many of the leaders who publicly condemn us privately thank us. They tell me how much they value Israel's superb intelligence services that have prevented time and again terrorist attacks in their capitals, time and again saving countless lives. General George Keegan, former head of U.S. Air Force intelligence, once said, "If the United States had to gather on its own the intelligence that Israel gives us, we would have to establish 5 CIAs. 5 CIAs. This past June, when Israel struck Iran's nuclear facilities, German Chancellor Merz admitted the truth. He said, Israel is doing the dirty work for all of us. President Trump understands better than any other leader that Israel and America face a common threat. He showed the world that when Iran and its proxies murder Americans, take Americans hostage, shout death to America, burn American flags, and try to assassinate the President of the United States, not once, but twice. He showed them there is a price to pay for all that. But regrettably, many leaders who are represented in this hall, they send a very different message. Sure, in the days immediately following October 7th, many of them supported Israel. But that support quickly evaporated when Israel did what any self-respecting nation would do in the wake of such a savage attack. We fought back. Now just imagine, just sit back for a second and imagine an attack against America proportioned to the attack against Israel on October 7th. Imagine a regime, a terror regime, dispatching thousands of terrorists to invade the United States. They massacre 40,000 Americans. They take 10,000 Americans hostage. What do you think America would do? You think America would leave that regime standing? You don't think that. No way, not a chance. The United States would wipe out that terror regime and ensure that such savagery would never threaten America again. This is precisely what Israel is doing in Gaza. We're wiping out the terror regime of Hamas and ensuring that this savagery will never threaten Israel again. That's what we are doing. That's what any self-respecting government would do. Yet, and it's a yet that I'm sorry to say here. Yet over time, many world leaders buckled They buckled under the pressure of a biased media, radical Islamist constituencies, and anti-Semitic mobs. There's a familiar saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Well, for many countries here, when the going got tough, you caved. And here's the shameful result of that collapse. For much of the past 2 years, Israel has had to fight a seven-front war against barbarism, with many of your nations opposing us. Astoundingly, as we fight the terrorists who murdered many of your citizens, you are fighting us. You condemn us, you embargo us, and you wage political and legal warfare, it's called lawfare, against us. I say to the representatives of those nations, this is not an indictment of Israel. It's an indictment of you. It's an indictment of weak-kneed leaders who appease evil rather than support a nation whose brave soldiers guard you from the barbarians at the gate. They're already penetrating your gates. When will you learn? You can't appease your way out of jihad, and you won't escape the Islamist storm by sacrificing Israel. To overcome that storm, you have to stand with Israel. But that's not what you're doing. As the prophets of Israel foretold in the Bible, you've turned good into evil and evil into good. Now I want to drill down on this. Take the false charge of genocide. Israel is accused of deliberately targeting civilians. Ladies and gentlemen, the opposite is true. The head of urban warfare studies, Colonel John Spencer, he's perhaps the world's greatest expert on urban warfare, and he says, Israel is applying more measures to minimize civilian casualties than any military in history. And because we're doing that, the ratio of non-combatant to combatant casualties is less than 2 to 1 in Gaza. That's an astoundingly low ratio, lower than NATO's wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, especially when you consider that Gaza is one of the most densely populated urban areas on Earth. It has hundreds of miles of terror tunnels underground, and it has countless terror towers above ground, and thousands of terrorists embedded in the tunnels and in these towers in civilian areas. If you want to see what measures Israel takes to avoid civilian casualties in this war, just look at what we're doing now in Gaza City, the last Hamas stronghold, one of the two last strongholds. For 3 weeks, Israel dropped millions of leaflets, sent millions of text messages, and made countless phone calls urging civilians to leave Gaza City before our military moves in. At the same time, Hamas implants itself in mosques, schools, hospitals, apartment buildings, and tries to force those civilians not to leave, to stay in harm's way. And it often threatens them at gunpoint if they try to do so. For Israel, every civilian casualty is a tragedy. For Hamas, it's a strategy. Hamas uses civilians as human shields and as props in its sick propaganda war in Israel, against Israel, a propaganda war that the Western media buys hook, line, and sinker. Now, despite Hamas's threats, close to 700,000 Gazans, almost 750,000, have already heeded our calls and moved to safe zones. Now I want to ask you a simple question, a simple, logical question. Would a country committing genocide plead with the civilian population it is supposedly targeting to get out of harm's way? Would we tell them, get out, if we want to commit genocide? We're trying to get them out. And Hamas is trying to keep them in. And this charge is so baseless. The comparison to genocide, wholesale slaughter of populations. What, did the Nazis ask the Jews to leave, kindly leave, go out? Did others, you want me to name all the genocidal leaders of history? Just go one by one. Did anyone do this? Did they say, get out so we can come in? Of course not. So the truth has been turned on its head. Hamas, a genocidal terrorist organization whose charter calls for the murder of all Jews on the planet. This genocidal organization is given a pass. It's barely mentioned. While Israel, which does everything it can to get civilians out of harm's way, Israel is put in the dock. What a joke. You want to hear another one? Israel is accused of deliberately starving the people of Gaza when Israel is deliberately feeding the people of Gaza. Since the beginning of the war, Israel has let into Gaza more than 2 million tons of food and aid. That's 1 ton of aid for every man, woman, and child in Gaza. Nearly 3,000 calories per person per day. Some starvation policy. If there are Gazans who don't have enough food, it's because Hamas is stealing it. Hamas steals it, hoards it, and sells it at exorbitant prices to fight its war machine. Last month, even the UN, not exactly a supporter of Israel. You're supposed to laugh, by the way. Last month, even the UN admitted that Hamas and other armed groups looted 85% of the trucks. That's why you have deprivation. Those who peddled the blood libels of genocide and starvation against Israel are no better than those who peddled blood libels against the Jews in the Middle Ages when they falsely accused us of poisoning wells, spreading plague, and using the blood of children to bake Passover matzahs. Anti-Semitism dies hard. In fact, it doesn't die at all. It just keeps coming back with its libelous lies, refurbished, regurgitated over and over again. And I want to tell you something else. These anti-Semitic lies, they have consequences. In recent months, Jews have been assaulted in Canada, Austria, or rather Australia, Britain, France, the Netherlands, and elsewhere. Here in America, an elderly Holocaust survivor was burned to death in Colorado. And a beautiful young couple from the Israeli embassy in Washington was brutally gunned down right in front of the Holocaust Museum there. Thankfully, President Trump's administration is forcefully fighting the scourge of anti-Semitism, and every government here should follow its lead. But instead, many do the opposite. They actually reward the worst anti-Semites on earth. This week, the leaders of France, Britain, Australia, Canada, and other countries unconditionally recognized a Palestinian state. They did so after the horrors committed by Hamas on October 7th. Horrors praised on that day by nearly 90% of the Palestinian population. And let me say that again. Nearly 90% of Palestinians supported the attack on October 7th. It's not supported only, they celebrated it. They danced on the rooftops. They threw candies. That's both in Gaza and in Judea, Samaria, the West Bank as you call it. And it's just the way they celebrated another horror, 9/11. They danced on the rooftops. They cheered. They threw candy. You know what message the leaders who recognize the Palestinian state this week sent to the Palestinians? It's a very clear message. Murdering Jews pays off. Well, I have a message for these leaders. When the most savage terrorists on earth are effusively praising your decision, you didn't do something right. You did something wrong, horribly wrong. Your disgraceful decision will encourage terrorism against Jews and against innocent people everywhere. It will be a mark of shame on all of you. But wait a minute, Mr. Prime Minister, they tell me. Wait a minute. We believe in a two-state solution where the Jewish state of Israel will live side by side in peace with the Palestinian state. There's only one problem with that. The Palestinians, they don't believe in this solution. They never have. They don't want a state next to Israel. They want a Palestinian state instead of Israel. And that's why every time they were offered a Palestinian state, but were required to end the conflict with Israel and recognize the Jewish state, every time, over the decades, they turned it down. And that is why every time they were given territory, they used it to attack us. In fact, they effectively had a Palestinian state in Gaza. So what did they do with that state? Peace? Coexistence? No. They attacked us time and time again. Totally unprovoked. They fired rockets into our cities. They murdered our children. They turned Gaza into a terror base from which they committed the October 7th massacre. So here's the uncomfortable truth. The persistent Palestinian rejection of a Jewish state in any boundary is what has driven this conflict for over a century. It is still driving it. It's not the absence of a Palestinian state. It's the presence and existence of a Jewish state. And I find it amazing, that the foreign chancelleries and the ministries and all those who pontificate about this, and the leaders, how can they not see this basic truth when it is repeated again and again and again ad nauseum? And I want to say something else. This rejection of a Jewish state not only applies to Hamas, it also applies to the so-called moderate Palestinian Authority. You should know that the Palestinian authorities pays terrorists to slay Jews. The more Jews the terrorists slay, the more the Palestinian Authority pays. The Palestinian Authority names its government buildings, its public squares, its schools, after the mass murderers of Jews, which they glorify as martyrs. They pay and glorify not just the killer of Jews, but also killers of Christians. Christians like Taylor Force, an American veteran who was brutally murdered in Israel by Palestinian terrorists. But, that I hear from the Western leaders. They tell me, the PA promised us it will reform. And I know this time, Prime Minister, it will be different. Yeah, right. We've heard these promises for decades. They always promise. They never deliver. Because you see, the Palestinian Authority is corrupt to the core. They haven't held elections in 20 years. They use the same textbooks as Hamas, exactly the same textbooks. They teach their children to hate Jews and destroy the Jewish state. And Christians don't fare much better. When Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus, was under Israeli control, 80% of its residents were Christians. But since the PA took control, that number has dwindled to under 20%. These are the people you want to give a state to? What you're doing is giving the ultimate reward to intolerant fanatics who perpetrated and supported the October 7th massacre. Giving the Palestinians a state 1 mile from Jerusalem after October 7th is like giving Al-Qaeda a state 1 mile from New York City after September 11th. This is sheer madness. It's insane, and we won't do it. So here's another message to those Western leaders. Israel will not allow you to shove a terror state down our throats. We will not commit national suicide because you don't have the guts to face down a hostile media and anti-Semitic mobs demanding Israel's blood. And I want you to grasp something else, which is also distorted in the media. I say this not only in my name or the name of my government, but on behalf of all the people of Israel. Last year there was a vote in the Knesset, our parliament, whether or not to oppose the imposition of a Palestinian state. You want to guess what the results were? Out of 120 members of our parliament, 99 voted against and only 9 supported. That's over 90%. It's not a fringe group. It's not the prime minister who himself is extreme or he's held hostage by extreme parties to his right. It's over 90% of Israelis. My opposition to a Palestinian state is not simply my policies or my government's policy. It's the policy of the state and people of the state of Israel. Western leaders may have buckled under the pressure. And I guarantee you one thing, Israel won't. Israel's victories over the Iranian... Thank you, I know you won't too, that's good. Israel's victories over the Iranian terror axis have opened up possibilities for peace that were unthinkable 2 years ago. Take Syria. For decades, the very idea of peace between Israel and Syria seemed unimaginable. Well, no more. Today, we have begun serious negotiations with the new Syrian government. I believe an agreement can be reached that respects Syria's sovereignty and protects both Israeli security and the security of the minorities in the region, including the Druze minority. From the founding of Israel, Jews and Druze have been brothers in arms. We have fought together, we've bled together, we built our lives together. When I was a young commander in Israel's Special Forces, my own life was saved by the invaluable advice given to me by a great friend, Salim Shufi, a heroic Druze IDF veteran. And that's why I couldn't sit idly by, nor could Israel sit idly by, while the Druze were being slaughtered by jihadists. And I instructed our forces to stop the massacre, which they promptly did. Peace between Israel and Lebanon is possible as well. I call on the Lebanese government to also begin direct negotiations with Israel. I commend it for its declared aim to disarm Hezbollah. But we need more than words. If Lebanon takes genuine and sustained action to disarm Hezbollah, I'm sure we can achieve a sustainable peace. Of course, until that happens, we will take whatever action we need to defend ourselves and to maintain the conditions of the ceasefire which was established in Lebanon. Our goal is not merely to monitor Hezbollah's actions, but to prevent them from violating the ceasefire and attacking us at any time. But I'm sure that if the Lebanese government persists in its goal of disarming Hezbollah, peace will come very speedily and very readily. Victory over Hezbollah has made peace possible with our two Arab neighbors in the north. Victory over Hamas will make peace possible with nations throughout the Arab and Muslim world. Our victory would lead to a dramatic extension and expansion of the historic Abraham Accords, which President Trump brokered between Arab leaders and myself 5 years ago. And I took note, as I'm sure you did too, of the encouraging words spoken here by the President of Indonesia. This is the country with the largest Muslim population of all nations. And it's also a sign of what could come. Forward-looking Arabs and Muslim leaders know that cooperating with Israel will provide them with groundbreaking Israeli technologies, including in medicine and science, in agriculture and water, in defense and AI, and so many other fields. I believe that in the coming years, the Middle East will look dramatically different. Many of those who wage war on Israel today will be gone tomorrow. Brave peacemakers will take their place. And nowhere will this be more true than in Iran. The long-suffering Iranian people will regain their freedom. They will make Iran great again. And our two ancient peoples, the people of Israel and the people of Iran, will restore a friendship that will benefit the entire world. Ladies and gentlemen, the horrors that happened on one dark day, October 7th, those horrors happened countless times during the centuries of my people's exiles among the nations. Jewish blood was cheap. Jews were killed with impunity. We had to beg others to defend us. The rise of Israel did not mean that the attempts to destroy us would end. It meant that we could fight back against those attempts. And that is exactly what Israel has done since October 7th. Our sons and daughters fought like lions. Our brave soldiers donned their uniforms and rushed into battle. They were armed with the dreams of the 100 generations of Jews who came before them. The dream of living as a free people in the land of Israel, our beloved homeland for more than 3,000 years. The dreams of living in our own independent state. The dream of having an army to defend ourselves. And the dream of being a light unto the nations, a beacon of progress, ingenuity, innovation, for the benefit of all humanity. On October 7th, the enemies of Israel tried to extinguish that light. 2 years later, the resolve of Israel and the strength of Israel burned brighter than ever. With God's help, that strength and that resolve would lead us to a speedy victory and to a brilliant future of prosperity and peace. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the Prime Minister of the State of Israel.
A dramatic 45 minutes at the United Nations. It began, of course, with a huge and choreographed walkout of delegates at the start of Benjamin Netanyahu's speech and ended with mainly American delegates whooping and cheering the Israeli Prime Minister.
Certainly a contentious but very defiant speech there, including Netanyahu wearing a QR code on his lapel, which he urged people to scan, which takes you to a website with the horrors of October 7. I've never seen that done before. And interestingly, that entire speech was relayed live across Gaza from the trucks of the IDF there. So not only the Gazan people and Hamas could hear it, but if there are any hostages listening as well. Catherine Forster joins us in the studio. Catherine, I think one of the most interesting things that he said, amongst many, many things he said, there's Netanyahu rejects a Palestinian state, declaring it sheer madness. It's insane and we won't do it.
Yes, he did. He said that the idea of having a Palestinian state within a mile of Jerusalem after the atrocities of October the 7th, he said it's like giving Al-Qaeda a state 1 mile from New York City after September the 11th, and some of the American delegates were applauding that. He said of the whole two-state solution, it is sheer madness, it is insane, we won't do it. He slammed the Palestinian Authority, not just Hamas, which of course you would expect, but the Palestinian Authority as well. I thought, you know, he very much tried to bring it back to remember what happened on October the 7th with the QR code, with those videos, saying that he was talking to the hostages directly. He says there's 48 hostages still in Gaza, 20 of them are alive. He named them as well. And then he absolutely launched a blistering attack on the United Kingdom, among other countries, called us out by name, the UK, Australia, Canada, France and others, of course, all countries who recognised Palestine as a state earlier this week.
Catherine, I should just say we're looking at pictures on our screen now of the mass walkout of delegates that occurred at the start of this speech, a really dramatic moment and the backdrop to which all of these words were said.
Yes, and very dramatic. And of course, the international community is so divided. We had the United Nations inquiry concluded that Israel was committing genocide. They refute that absolutely. They say, no, you know, it is Hamas who are the genocidal terrorists. They talked about aid. He said, we're sending in 3,000 calories per person per day. If people are starving, it's become because Hamas are stealing the aid. And on the West, you know, he said that Britain and others, he said it was a disgraceful decision which encouraged terrorism. He said when the going got tough, you caved because you don't have the guts to face down hostile media. But I just think it shows how incredibly divided Western nations are on this issue. You know, he said our enemies are your enemies, but among the international community, so many countries feeling that Israel has gone too far. And I have to say, listening to that speech, it's very difficult to see how this is resolved at all, because for all that you can call for a two-state solution, the Israeli government are clearly having absolutely none of it.
To be fair, nor are Hamas, and extricating Hamas from Gaza is a completely different matter. But interesting, I thought, Catherine, he said, leaders who publicly condemn us privately thank us. Obviously, he doesn't mention any names, but you do wonder if what he's saying is accurate, which countries he's talking about.
Well, you do wonder, but of course we won't know because he's not naming them. Clearly, America is still Israel's biggest and by far most important ally. There are concerns following this recognition of a Palestine state that Israel may go further, you know, in annexing the West Bank. We know that there's a lot of illegal settlements. Donald Trump has said that he will not allow that to happen, but it's difficult to see what can shift the dial, really, apart from Donald Trump, because Israel feel massively aggrieved, and they feel entirely justified.
That was very, obviously this is taking place in New York, but that was very much done, every word of that, to keep America on side. Yeah. You know, who are the people chanting death to America? It is Hamas, it is Hezbollah. It's very much, we are on your side, you're on our side. And he also said, Netanyahu, we have not done with war on Gaza yet.
No, and we hear today plans for Tony Blair to be involved, but it just goes on, and I think what it shows really is the powerlessness, all the coverage that we had of, you know, the UK recognising Palestine as a state, Canada. So what? At the end of the day, so what? Because it is a gesture. It is a symbolic gesture. In the case of the UK government, it may make some Labour MPs feel better. It may make some people feel better. But on the ground, it changes absolutely it's nothing.
Not stopping anyone dying. And he also slammed recognition of Palestinian state. Again, a direct attack on Keir Starmer and the UK, saying that move will encourage more attacks.
Indeed.
Well, Catherine Forster, thanks for that summary there of that extraordinary moment in New York at the United Nations. Back here at home, though, we should say that a petition demanding the UK government immediately commits to not introduce digital ID cards has now surpassed 1 million signatures.
Quite astonishing, and that's only been going for a few hours, basically, as we watch. We've watched it literally, has been sitting here, thank you for your company, by the way, literally going up by the second.
And we were wondering at the start of the programme programme if it would breach 1 million by the end of the programme. Yes. And my goodness me, with 5 seconds to go at the end of this programme, it has passed 1 million. But that's it from us this week.
Yep, thank you very much for your company, but don't go too far, because up next we have Martin Daubney, who will continue with the story about digital ID. And you please do keep your messages coming in. Lots and lots of you getting in touch. I'm apologising. We didn't have time to read as many out as we would have liked. But thank you for your company.
Martin Daubney is up next.
Stonking show, guys. Yes, of course, the 1 million mark has been breached. I'll be joined by a Labour MP, though, who's defiant, and a Labour peer who still thinks it's the right thing to do. But could it be Sir Keir Starmer's poll tax moment? Two astonishing stories about flags today. The Operation Raise the Colours campaign last night was out across Birmingham. 200 flags have been taken down overnight. Guess by who? By white Liberals. They were welcomely warmed by Asians in the area, but it's the white Liberals who are the problem. And in Sandhurst, yes, Sandhurst, the home of our Officers Military Training Academy, they've refused to fly a flag at the council town hall. What on earth is going on in Sandhurst? Why are they ashamed of our flag? Plus, full analysis of how Nigel Farage looks to be steaming into Downing Street, and the Labour Party heading for its worst election result since 1931. The Tories, meanwhile, are facing near extinction. We've got an action-packed show. Get a cup of tea, or perhaps something stronger. It is Friday. I'll see you soon. But first, here's your weather forecast.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benamar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Now, Dame Helen Mirren has said that despite being a feminist, she believes the next James Bond has to be a chap.
OK, she said that she believes it just doesn't work. And by having a woman as Bond, the project becomes something else entirely.
So we are asking the question, could Bond ever be a woman?
Well, we're joined by a former what is termed Bond girl, Jenny Hanley. And and there is... we weren't expecting you, but it's really 007 podcast contributor John Kell there as well. Jenny, you've been there, done it, got the T-shirt, been involved in it. What's your take?
I think James Bond has to be a male because he came from the imagination of Ian Fleming. If you want a female 007, don't ride on his coattails and take the fame that has come from his character, James Bond. Write your own.
Yeah, you see, that's what I tend to think. But
I just think that you just go 007. The problem is, right, the last Bond film, he died. James Bond died. I mean, there was a... Oh, sorry.
Great, I haven't seen that one.
Sorry. Yeah. I think everybody pretty much now knows that he definitely... I mean, there was an absolutely... It wasn't even did he or didn't he, can he or can he not survive. It was 100% gone. So it's now time for a clean... The nice thing about a clean sheet, surely, John, is that you can actually go, right, so 007, let's do the 007, and then we can do different stories, because the books that have been written by Ian Fleming have been well and truly milked, haven't they?
GB News, the People's Channel.